Hello guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if Naruto disappeared and returned with Yugito, female Haku and son. Subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and also check the description. So let's begin the story. The night air was cool against Naruto's skin as he slipped through the dense forest surrounding Konoha. Moonlight filtered through the canopy, casting dappled shadows across the forest floor. The 13-year-old genin moved with practiced silence, his footsteps barely disturbing the fallen leaves beneath him. Anyone who knew Naruto Uzumaki, loud, brash, and perpetually clad in bright orange, would have been shocked by the focused determination on his face. But that was the point. No one truly knew him at all. Finding his usual clearing, Naruto formed a familiar hand sign. Shadow clone jutsu, he whispered, and 20 perfect copies of himself appeared in puffs of smoke. Without a word, they dispersed into groups, each beginning different training exercises. From a small scroll tucked inside his jacket, Naruto withdrew a larger one, not the forbidden scroll itself, but meticulous notes he had taken months ago. His fingers traced the complex ceiling patterns he had copied that night. The night that had changed everything. Water Dragon Jutsu, he murmured, focusing his chakra as he performed the sequence of hand signs. The nearby stream responded, water rising and coalescing into the shape of a dragon. It was smaller than the one Zabuza had used, but it was perfectly formed, hovering at Naruto's command. A satisfied smile spread across his face as he released the jutsu, letting the water splash back into the stream. His control was improving. Next, he turned to the section on elemental manipulation. According to his notes, wind was his natural affinity, but to truly master the jutsu in the scroll, he needed command of all 5 elements. Fire style, Phoenix Flower Jutsu, he attempted, producing several small fireballs that scattered through the clearing. Not as powerful as he'd like, but progress nonetheless. As he continued practicing, Naruto's thoughts drifted to the day that had set him on this path. 3 months earlier, Naruto's heart pounded as he unrolled the massive scroll he'd stolen from the Hokage's residence. Mizuki-sensei had said this was a special test. Steal the scroll and learn one jutsu from it to pass and become a genin. It had been surprisingly easy to get past the guards with his sexy jutsu. Let's see, the first one is Multi-Shadow Clone Jutsu, he read aloud, squinting at the complex instructions. Not this again. Clone Jutsu is my worst technique, but he had no choice. With determination, Naruto began practicing the hand signs, channeling his chakra according to the scroll's diagrams. Hours passed, and sweat poured down his face as he repeated the technique over and over. Just as he finally mastered the Shadow Clone Jutsu, a realization struck him. This scroll contained countless powerful techniques, and he had it all to himself for who knew how long. An idea formed in his mind. Shadow Clone Jutsu, he exclaimed, and suddenly 50 Narutos stood in the forest clearing. Alright, listen up. The original Naruto addressed his clones. We've got a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity here. Each of you take a section of the scroll and memorize everything you can. Whatever you learn, I'll know when you dispel. The clones nodded, understanding the gravity of this chance. They gathered around the scroll, each studying different sections, committing complex jutsu, sealing techniques, and forbidden knowledge to memory. Hours later, when Iruka-sensei found him, Naruto had dispelled most of his clones, absorbing their knowledge. He played his part. The confused student who'd been tricked by Mizuki. The determined failure who'd mastered just one technique to prove himself worthy. No one needed to know about the hundreds of forbidden jutsu now locked away in his mind. Back in the present, Naruto dispelled his training clones, instantly receiving their experiences, the chakra control exercises, the elemental manipulation practice, the taijutsu forms. This was his true genius, using shadow clones to compress years of training into months. Time to check on the seal, he muttered to himself, settling into a cross-legged position. Closing his eyes, Naruto focused inward, his consciousness descending into the depths of his mindscape. The familiar damp corridor materialized around him, pipes running along the ceiling, water ankle-deep on the floor. He walked purposefully toward the massive chamber that housed the nine-tailed fox. Back again, kid? Rumbled a deep voice as Naruto approached the enormous cage. Gleaming red eyes stared down at him from the darkness, the massive form of the nine-tails barely visible behind the bars. Come to beg for more power? Evening to you too, Kurama, Naruto replied casually, dropping down to sit before the cage. And I don't recall ever begging for your power. A low growl echoed through the chamber. You continue to use that name with such familiarity. Bold, considering I could devour your soul if these bars weren't in the way. Naruto shrugged. But they are in the way, so here we are talking again. Besides, I've been working on something that might make your accommodations a bit more comfortable. This caught the fox's attention. Kurama shifted forward, his enormous muzzle coming into the light. What trickery is this? No trickery, Naruto replied, pulling out a mental projection of his notes. I found a modification to the 8 trigram seal in the Forbidden Scroll. It won't release you, so don't get any ideas. But it could give you more awareness of the outside world. Maybe even let you see and hear what I do, if you want. The Nine-Tails narrowed his eyes suspiciously. Why would you do this? What do you gain, honestly? I'm tired of being alone, Naruto admitted with unexpected candor. Everyone in the village sees me as either the dead last troublemaker or the demon fox. No one sees me. At least you're stuck with me, so we might as well try to get along. Silence filled the chamber as Kurama regarded the young human before him. In thousands of years, no Jinchuriki had ever approached him this way, not as a weapon to be used, but as a potential ally. You are a strange one, Naruto Uzumaki, Kurama finally said. I've watched humans for centuries. They fear what they don't understand, and they hate what they fear. They sealed me away, passed me from prison to prison, and never once considered that I might be more than a monster. Naruto nodded. I know something about being seen as a monster. Another long silence passed between them. Show me this seal modification, Kurama finally said. Naruto grinned, unrolling his mental scroll. It's complex, but I think we can make it work. See if we adjust this part here. That had been the beginning. Over the following weeks, a tentative understanding had grown between them. Not quite friendship yet, but something closer to mutual respect. Kurama, initially suspicious, had begun offering occasional guidance on chakra control, having observed countless shinobi over the centuries. Naruto! Naruto, where are you? Sakura's voice pulled Naruto from his meditation. He quickly rolled up his notes and tucked them away, arranging his features into the carefree grin everyone expected. Coming, Sakura-chan. He called back, making sure to sound overly enthusiastic. Your acting skills have improved, Kurama's voice echoed in his mind, a development from their modified seal. Necessity, Naruto replied mentally as he jogged toward Tezuna's house. No one suspects the class clown. He emerged from the forest to find Sakura standing outside with her hands on her hips, looking annoyed. Where have you been? Dinner's ready, and Kakashi-sensei wants to go over tomorrow's watch schedule. Sorry, Sakura-chan. I was practicing my tree climbing. Naruto rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Sakura rolled her eyes. You're never going to catch up to Sasuke-kun at this rate. He's already mastered it. I know, Naruto pouted, playing his part perfectly. But I'll get it soon, believe it. As they walked back to Tezuna's house, Naruto observed Sakura from the corner of his eye. She was so focused on Sasuke that she never noticed the inconsistencies in Naruto's performance. Like how his clothes weren't dirty enough for someone who'd supposedly been falling from trees all evening, or how his chakra reserves were too depleted for simple tree climbing exercises. Inside, the small house was warm and filled with the aroma of cooking. Tsunami, Tezuna's daughter, was setting the table while Kakashi sat in the corner, his visible eye fixed on his ever-present orange book. Sasuke leaned against the wall, arms crossed, wearing his usual scowl. Finally decided to join us dead last? Sasuke remarked coldly. I was training. Naruto protested loudly. Just you wait, I'll master tree climbing by tomorrow. The Uchiha is suspicious of you, Kurama observed. He senses something is off. Sasuke's always been perceptive, Naruto replied mentally. But he's too focused on his own goals to look too closely at me. Kakashi glanced up from his book. Ah, Naruto. Good timing. After dinner, I want to go over the guard rotation for tomorrow. We can't be too careful with Zabuza still out there. The mention of Zabuza sobered the room. Their encounter with the demon of the hidden mist had been a close call. Kakashi had been trapped in Zabuza's water prison, and only through quick thinking, and what Naruto had made appear as dumb luck, had they managed to free him. Do you really think he survived? Tezuna asked nervously. That tracker ninja took him away. I'm certain of it, Kakashi replied, closing his book. Hunter Nin disposed of bodies on the spot. The fact that this one transported Zabuza away suggests they were working together. Naruto took his seat at the table, mind racing. The false Hunter Nin had used Saban, not lethal weapons. They had targeted specific points that could induce a death-like state. It all made sense now that Kakashi explained it. But Naruto was frustrated with himself for not recognizing it sooner. There were still gaps in his knowledge, despite everything he'd learned from the Forbidden Scroll. So what do we do? Sakura asked, worry evident in her voice. We prepare, Kakashi answered. Zabuza will need about a week to recover. During that time, we'll continue your training. Dinner proceeded with tense conversation about Gato's grip on the wave country and the importance of completing the bridge. Throughout the meal, Naruto maintained his facade, loudly proclaiming how he would protect everyone and become Hokage someday. All the while, beneath the act, his mind analyzed their situation from every angle. Zabuza was dangerous, but the hunter Nin, likely an accomplice, was an unknown factor. They had used Ice Senbon, suggesting a possible connection to the rare ice release Kekkai Genkai. The Forbidden Scroll had contained references to such abilities, though details were sparse. After dinner, Inari, Tazuna's grandson, made his usual gloomy proclamation about how they were all going to die fighting Gato, directing particular venom toward Naruto's optimism. Naruto responded with his expected outburst, stomping away as if upset. Later, on the roof, Naruto gazed up at the stars. "The boy is not wrong," Kurama commented. "Your team is outmatched. Kakashi barely survived the first encounter." "I know," Naruto replied. "But I have a few tricks that even Zabuza won't expect." "You risk exposing your true abilities, only if absolutely necessary," Naruto assured him. "For now, I'll keep playing the struggling genin." The next morning, Team 7 headed into the forest for training. Kakashi, still recovering from chakra exhaustion, hobbled along on crutches, explaining the tree climbing exercise as if it were new to all of them. "Focus your chakra to the soles of your feet, and use it to connect to the tree trunk. Too little chakra and you'll fall off, too much and you'll repel yourself," Kakashi instructed. "Use a kunai to mark your progress." Sasuke and Sakura received kunai, while Naruto made a show of taking his out of his pouch. At Kakashi's signal, all three genin ran towards separate trees. Naruto deliberately applied too much chakra, blasting himself away from the trunk. Sasuke made it a few steps up before his feet broke the bark, forcing him to mark his spot and jump away. Sakura, with her excellent chakra control, made it all the way to the top branch on her first try. "This is harder than it looks," Naruto complained, rubbing his head where he'd landed. "It's about control, not power," Kakashi explained, his eye crinkling in what might have been amusement. "Perhaps Sakura, not the great Sasuke, will be the first female Hokage." Naruto caught the flash of annoyance in Sasuke's eyes at being outperformed by Sakura. Rivalry was a powerful motivator for the last Uchiha. Meanwhile, Sakura beamed at Sasuke, clearly hoping for acknowledgement that never came. Their dynamic was so predictable, Naruto thought. Sakura seeking Sasuke's approval, Sasuke seeking power, and both of them underestimating Naruto. It was a perfect cover. The training continued through the day, with Naruto making just enough progress to seem like he was trying hard but not quite getting it. By evening, Sasuke had made it halfway up his tree, while Naruto's marks showed him lagging significantly behind. "Keep at it," Kakashi told them as he prepared to escort Sakura back to guard Tazuna. "Don't stay out too late." Once they were gone, the competition between the two boys intensified. At least, that's how it appeared to Sasuke. For Naruto, it was an elaborate performance, carefully calculated to maintain his image while pushing Sasuke to improve. As night fell, Naruto finally proclaimed, "I'm going to get some advice from Sakura-chan," and ran off, leaving Sasuke to continue training alone. Instead of seeking out Sakura, however, Naruto ventured deeper into the forest, finding a secluded spot near a small pond. Here, he could practice what he really needed to work on, water walking, a more advanced chakra control exercise he'd found in the scroll. "Shadow clone jutsu," he whispered, creating 10 clones. 5 began practicing water walking on the pond, while the others worked on elemental manipulation. "The Uchiha's chakra is getting stronger," Kurama noted. "His Sharingan will awaken soon if pushed." "I know," Naruto replied. "But we need everyone at their best if we're going to survive this mission." Hours passed as Naruto trained in secret, his clones dispelling one by one to transfer their experience. By midnight he could stand confidently on the water's surface, and his elemental manipulations were showing improvement, particularly with wind and water. Exhausted but satisfied, Naruto made his way back to Tazuna's house, careful to rough up his clothes and add a few smudges of dirt to maintain the appearance of hard training. He found Sasuke had already returned, and everyone else was asleep. The next few days followed a similar pattern. During the day, Naruto played the struggling, determined underdog, slowly improving at tree climbing. At night, he trained rigorously on his own, mastering advanced techniques and refining his control. On the 5th night, something changed. Naruto had pushed himself particularly hard, practicing a complex water-style jutsu that required precise chakra control. Completely drained, he fell asleep right there in the forest clearing, his body finally demanding rest. Morning sunlight and a gentle touch on his shoulder woke him. "You'll catch cold sleeping out here," said a soft voice. Naruto's eyes snapped open to see a beautiful face framed by long black hair. For a moment, he was disoriented, then his shinobi instincts kicked in. This was no ordinary civilian. The person's chakra was too controlled, too refined. "I was training," Naruto explained, sitting up and rubbing his eyes, reassuming his mask of the determined but inexperienced genin. "You must be a shinobi," the stranger observed, gesturing to Naruto's headband. "That's impressive. Training so hard at your age." Naruto studied the person before him. Delicate features, a pink kimono, carrying a basket of herbs. But beneath the peaceful appearance, Naruto sensed danger, controlled, but present. "This is the fake hunter Nin," Kurama growled within him. "The one who saved Zabuza." Naruto maintained his facade, while his mind raced through options. This was an unexpected opportunity, one that required careful handling. "I'm gathering medicinal herbs for a friend who's injured," the young person explained, showing Naruto the basket. "I can help," Naruto offered enthusiastically, scrambling to his feet. "I'm Naruto Uzumaki, by the way. I'm going to be Hokage someday." A small smile touched the stranger's lips. "My name is Haku. It's nice to meet you, Naruto." As they gathered herbs together, Naruto kept up his character, asking obvious questions, making bold proclamations about his dreams, acting completely oblivious to Haku's true identity. All the while, he carefully observed every detail, from the calluses on Haku's hands that spoke of Saban training to the way chakra flowed through Haku's body, suggesting an ice-based Kekkei Genkai. "Do you have someone precious to you?" Haku asked suddenly. The question caught Naruto off guard. It wasn't one he'd expected from an enemy. When a person has something precious to protect, that is when they become truly strong, Haku continued, eyes distant. For once, Naruto didn't have to pretend. "I think I understand that. There are people in my village who accepted me when everyone else saw me as something else. I'd do anything to protect them." Haku studied Naruto's face, perhaps seeing more than Naruto intended to reveal. "Then you will become strong. Very strong." As Haku stood to leave, basket now full of herbs, something compelled Naruto to take a risk. "Your friend," he said carefully. "The one who's injured. Make sure he knows who he's really working for." Haku froze, the briefest tension visible in shoulders before turning back with a neutral expression. "What do you mean?" "Just that employers like Gato have a reputation for renegotiating terms once the work is done." Naruto maintained eye contact, dropping his cheerful mask for just a moment. "Especially with missing Nin who have no village to back them up." A flash of alarm crossed Haku's face before being quickly suppressed. "You're more perceptive than you appear, Naruto Uzumaki." Naruto grinned, rubbing the back of his head. "Nah, just repeating something I overheard from the old bridge builder. Anyway, I hope your friend gets better soon." The mask was back in place, but something had changed between them. A silent acknowledgement had passed. Haku studied him for a long moment before saying, "By the way, I'm a boy." As Haku walked away, Naruto called out, "If your friend ever wants options beyond someone like Gato, well, not all villages are the same." Haku paused but didn't turn around. After a moment, he continued walking, disappearing into the forest. "A dangerous game you're playing, kid," Kurama rumbled. "Maybe," Naruto conceded. "But something tells me Haku and Zabuza aren't our real enemies here." Naruto returned to Tezuna's house, mind working through this new development. The encounter had confirmed several things. Zabuza was indeed alive, the hunter Nin, Haku, was his accomplice, and they were still working for Gato. But Naruto sensed an opportunity. Haku cared deeply for Zabuza, and that bond might be leveraged if Gato's treachery could be proven. That evening, while everyone believed he was still training in the forest, Naruto created a shadow clone to maintain that illusion and slipped away toward the town. He needed information about Gato, his operations, his patterns, and most importantly, how he typically handled hired shinobi. Konoha's dead last pulled up a hood to conceal his distinctive blonde hair and moved silently through the shadows of the impoverished town. Where others saw only desperation, Naruto saw valuable intelligence sources. The drunks at the bar, the street vendors packing up for the night, the hungry children watching everything from hiding places. They all knew pieces of Gato's operation. Over several hours, through careful questions and strategic eavesdropping, a pattern emerged. Gato had hired shinobi before, and none had survived to collect their final payment. The businessman's preferred method was to wait until his hired muscle had been weakened in battle, then overwhelm them with numbers. Cheap thugs who cost far less than missing Nin. By midnight, Naruto had what he needed. Now came the difficult decision: how to use this information. Back in the forest, Naruto dispelled his shadow clone and sat in meditation, conferring with Kurama. Zabuza and Haku will come for the bridge builder soon, he thought. If I do nothing, they'll fight Kakashi-sensei and possibly die, either in battle or by Gato's treachery afterward. And why would you care if they die? Kurama asked. They are your enemies. Because it's unnecessary, Naruto replied. If I can show them Gato's true intentions, they have no reason to fight us. Zabuza just wants money for his rebellion in Kiri, not our lives specifically. So you would manipulate the situation to spare them, Kurama mused. Interesting. But what then? Your team still has a mission to protect the bridge builder. Naruto considered this. If Zabuza and Haku turn on Gato, they eliminate our real enemy. The bridge gets completed, Wave Country is freed, and 2 powerful shinobi owe me a favor. At the cost of revealing some of your true capabilities, Kurama pointed out. Not necessarily, Naruto countered. I can approach Haku tonight, away from my team. Present the evidence anonymously. What happens after is up to them. Kurama was silent for a moment before responding. Your compassion may be your downfall someday, Naruto Uzumaki. But your plan has merit. Proceed if you wish, but be wary. The demon of the hidden mist earned his name. Decision made, Naruto set out into the night again, this time heading toward where he suspected Zabuza and Haku were hiding. It took hours of careful searching, but eventually, he detected traces of familiar chakra, the cool, crystalline pattern he had sensed from Haku during their meeting. Following the signature led him to a modest house deep in the forest, well hidden from casual discovery. Naruto approached cautiously, knowing he was walking into the den of 2 elite shinobi. Rather than attempting to enter, he created a shadow clone to deliver his message, keeping his real body hidden in the trees. The clone approached the house, deliberately making enough noise to alert the occupants without seeming threatening. As expected, Saban flew from the darkness, striking the clone in vital points. Instead of dispelling immediately, the shadow clone, reinforced with extra chakra, remained standing just long enough to say, I have information about Gato's plans to betray you, before vanishing in a puff of smoke. From his hiding place, Naruto received the clone's final moments. Now he waited. Minutes passed. Then, the door to the house opened slightly, and Haku emerged, wearing the same battle outfit and mask he had worn as the false hunter Nin. I know you're still here, Haku called softly into the darkness. Show yourself. Naruto considered his options. Revealing himself carried risks, but sending another expendable clone wouldn't establish trust. He decided on a middle approach, a shadow clone with more durability, but one that still concealed his full capabilities. The clone stepped out of the shadows, hands raised to show he meant no harm. I'm not here to fight. I came to warn you about Gato. Haku's masked face tilted slightly. Naruto Uzumaki. So you weren't as oblivious as you pretended to be this morning. Let's just say I understand what it's like when people only see what they expect to see, the clone replied. Why would a Konoha genin warn his enemies? Haku questioned, Saban ready between his fingers. Because I don't think we need to be enemies. Your quarrel is with our client, not with us. And Gato isn't planning to honor his agreement with you anyway. A deeper voice called from inside the house. Bring him in, Haku. I want to hear this myself. The real Naruto, hidden in the trees, tensed. He hadn't planned on facing Zabuza directly. Still, the clone obeyed, following Haku into the house. Inside, Zabuza was propped up in a bed, still recovering but looking much more alert than a normal person would be a few days after being put in a death-like state. His massive sword rested against the wall within arm's reach. So, the loudmouth brat has a brain after all, Zabuza growled. Speak. What's this about Gato's betrayal? The clone explained everything Naruto had discovered. Gato's pattern with previous hired shinobi, the gathering of mercenaries, the timing planned to coincide with the final battle at the bridge when both Zabuza and Kakashi would be exhausted. You expect me to believe you're warning me out of the goodness of your heart? Zabuza's eyes narrowed dangerously. Believe what you want about my motives, the clone replied with a shrug. But ask yourself this, what do I gain by lying? If I wanted you defeated, I'd just let Gato's plan proceed. He makes a valid point, Zabuza-sama, Haku said quietly. Zabuza's eyes never left the clone. Let's say I believe you. What exactly are you proposing? That's up to you, the clone answered. I'm just providing information. But if I were in your position, I'd be thinking about who the real enemy is. A tense silence filled the room as Zabuza considered the clone's words. Finally, he spoke. You've got guts, kid. Either that, or you're the biggest fool I've ever met. He gestured dismissively. I'll think about what you've said. Now get out before I decide to use you for target practice. The clone bowed slightly and backed toward the door. One more thing, it said. If you decide Gato isn't worth your loyalty, there are other options. Wave Country would probably be grateful to whoever freed them from his control. And there are other villages that might value shinobi of your caliber. With that, the clone left, walking calmly into the forest until it was out of sight before dispelling. The real Naruto received its memories and experiences, satisfied that the seed had been planted. Over the next day, Naruto continued his charade, finally mastering tree climbing alongside Sasuke in a display of determined effort that pleased Kakashi. The Jonin declared them ready to accompany him to the bridge the following day. That night, as everyone slept, Naruto sat on the roof, contemplating his actions and their potential consequences. Tomorrow will decide everything, he thought. Are you prepared to reveal your true abilities if necessary? Kurama asked. If it means protecting my team, yes, Naruto replied. But I'm hoping it won't come to that. And if Zabuza chooses to follow through with his contract regardless, then we fight, Naruto said simply. And I do whatever it takes to keep everyone alive. As dawn approached, Naruto sensed the presence approaching the house. Silently, he created a shadow clone to maintain his place in bed and slipped outside to investigate. In the pre-dawn mist, he found Haku waiting, still wearing the Hunter Nin mask. You were telling the truth, Haku said without preamble. We followed one of Gato's messengers last night. He's gathering every thug and mercenary in the region, planning to eliminate us once we've dealt with your team. Naruto nodded. What will you do? Zabuza-sama is reconsidering our arrangement with Gato, Haku replied carefully. But our goal remains the same. We need funding for the resistance in Kiri. And you don't trust the bridge builder to pay you instead? Naruto suggested. This poor country can barely feed itself, Haku pointed out. Besides, Zabuza-sama has his pride. He doesn't change sides easily. Naruto considered this. What if there was a way for everyone to get what they want? The bridge gets built, Wave Country is freed, and you get your funding for Kiri. And how would this miracle occur? Haku asked skeptically. Gato is wealthy, Naruto said. Very wealthy. And if something were to happen to him, someone would need to secure his assets before his organization falls apart. Understanding dawned in Haku's eyes behind the mask. An interesting proposition. I'll convey it to Zabuza-sama. The bridge is nearly complete, Naruto added. Tazuna estimates another day of work. Whatever you decide, it needs to happen soon, Haku nodded. You're unusual for a Konoha shinobi, Naruto Uzumaki. Especially one so young. I've had to grow up quickly, Naruto replied with a sad smile. As Haku turned to leave, Naruto called out softly, by the way, if you and Zabuza ever want a different path, I meant what I said about other villages. The Mizukage isn't like the old bloody mist anymore. Things are changing. Haku paused. How would you know about such things? Naruto tapped his stomach meaningfully. Let's just say I have access to historical perspectives. Without another word, Haku vanished into the mist, leaving Naruto alone with his thoughts. The pieces were in motion now. Tomorrow would reveal whether his gamble would pay off. As he returned to bed, replacing his shadow clone, Naruto felt strangely at peace despite the uncertainty. For once, he wasn't just reacting to events around him or playing a role assigned by others' expectations. He was shaping his own path. Whatever happens tomorrow, he thought as sleep finally claimed him, it will be the beginning of something new. Inside his mindscape, Kurama watched his Jinchuriki with newfound respect. Perhaps this human was different, after all. Perhaps, after centuries of hatred and battle, a new possibility was emerging. One where human and Biju worked together not as master and weapon, but as genuine allies. Only time would tell. Dawn broke over Wave Country with a heavy mist rolling in from the sea. Kakashi woke early, a nagging feeling of unease pulling him from sleep. Years as an ANBU had honed his instincts, and something felt off this morning. He dressed quickly, strapping on his weapons pouch and adjusting his mask before heading downstairs. The house was quiet, Tsunami preparing breakfast in the kitchen while Tazuna nursed a cup of tea at the table. Inari sat silently beside his grandfather, eyes downcast as usual. Good morning, Kakashi greeted them. Are my students up yet? The girl and the dark-haired boy came down a few minutes ago, Tazuna replied. Said something about checking the perimeter. Kakashi nodded. Sasuke was taking his training seriously, and Sakura followed wherever he went, but Naruto should have been the first one up, loudly proclaiming his readiness for the day. And Naruto? Tsunami looked up from the stove. I haven't seen him this morning. Perhaps he's still sleeping? He's been training so hard. Something cold settled in Kakashi's stomach. He moved upstairs with practiced silence, sliding open the door to the small room his male students shared. Sasuke's bedroll was neatly folded. Naruto's remained spread out, a conspicuous lump suggesting someone was still sleeping there. But Kakashi knew better. He approached the bedroll and yanked back the blanket, revealing a makeshift form constructed from spare pillows. On top lay a folded piece of paper with Team 7 written on it. Kakashi's visible eye narrowed as he picked up the note. The handwriting was neater than he'd expected from Naruto. Another small inconsistency he'd failed to properly investigate. To Team 7, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I've learned something important about Gato and his plans. There are things I need to do that I can't explain right now. Please continue protecting Tazuna and the bridge. It's what matters most to these people. Kakashi-sensei. I know this looks like abandonment of duty. Maybe it is. But I believe this path leads to the best outcome for everyone. I hope someday you'll understand. Sasuke, you're still a jerk, but you're stronger than anyone I know. Keep getting stronger. But don't forget why strength matters. Sakura-chan, you're the smartest person in our class. Trust yourself more and worry less about what others think of you. I don't know when or if I'll see you again. But no matter what happens, even if our paths diverge permanently, I'll always consider you my first real team. Naruto, P.S. Watch the bridge. Everything will make sense soon. Kakashi crumpled the note in his fist, a mixture of anger and concern washing over him. The note was too mature, too calculated for the Naruto he thought he knew. The realization hit him hard. He had severely misjudged his most unpredictable student. Kakashi-sensei? He turned to find Sakura standing in the doorway, Sasuke looming behind her. Naruto's gone, he said flatly, holding out the crumpled note. Sakura took it, her eyes widening as she read. He left? But why? Where would he go? Sasuke snatched the note from her hands, his expression darkening as he scanned its contents. The idiot's gone rogue, he muttered, but Kakashi caught the flicker of something else beneath the dismissive tone. Concern, perhaps, or confusion. Get your gear, Kakashi ordered. We need to find him before he gets himself killed. Outside, Kakashi bit his thumb and performed a rapid sequence of hand signs, slamming his palm to the ground. Summoning jutsu. In a puff of smoke, 8 Niken appeared, each wearing the distinctive headband and vest that marked them as Kakashi's summons. Pakin, Kakashi addressed the smallest dog, a pug with a perpetually unimpressed expression. Naruto's missing. I need you to find his trail. Pakin sniffed the air, then the ground. The kid went that way, he said, nodding toward the forest. His scent is about 8 hours old. Spread out, Kakashi instructed the Niken. Find where he went and report back. If he's with anyone else, I need to know who. The dogs dispersed in different directions while Kakashi turned to his remaining students. One of us should stay with Tazuna, Sakura suggested. Kakashi nodded. Sakura, you'll guard Tazuna today. Sasuke, you're with me. We're going to track down our wayward teammate. Sasuke grunted, but Kakashi could see the determination in his eyes. For all his apparent disdain, Sasuke took his team bond seriously. As they prepared to leave, Pakin returned, his expression troubled. Found something? Kakashi asked. The kid's trail leads to the edge of town, then toward the coast. He went to a large compound surrounded by guards. Must be this Gato person's headquarters. But here's the strange part. The pug hesitated. His scent mingles with 2 others there. One smells like snow and herbs, the other like blood and bandages. Kakashi's eye widened. Zabuza and his accomplice. Are you certain? My nose doesn't lie, Pakin affirmed. But after that, all 3 trails vanished completely. It's like they disappeared into thin air. I've never seen anything like it. A cold dread settled over Kakashi. Had Naruto been captured? But the note suggested he'd left voluntarily. Was it possible he'd actually joined forces with their enemies? Change of plans, Kakashi announced. We all stay with Tazuna today. If Zabuza makes his move, it will be at the bridge. But what about Naruto? Sakura protested. The note said to watch the bridge, Sasuke reminded her, his eyes meeting Kakashi's. They both understood. Whatever Naruto had set in motion, it would reveal itself there. Be ready for anything, Kakashi warned. 8 hours earlier, Naruto crouched in the underbrush outside Gato's compound, studying the patrol patterns of the guards. Beside him, Haku remained perfectly still, white mask gleaming faintly in the moonlight. Behind them, concealed deeper in the forest, Zabuza waited, still recovering but insisting on participating in the operation. 22 guards visible, Naruto whispered. Probably more inside. No shinobi among them, but some have samurai training. Their lack of skill makes them unpredictable, Haku observed. We should expect erratic responses. Naruto nodded, impressed by Haku's tactical assessment. I've been watching this place for days. Guard rotation happens every 4 hours. The next change is in 20 minutes. That's our window. Zabuza's voice came from behind them, barely audible. You've done this kind of infiltration before, kid? Naruto turned, meeting the demon of the mist's skeptical gaze. More than you'd think. In a village that sees you as a monster, you learn to move unseen. Something like understanding flickered in Zabuza's eyes before he resumed his cold demeanor. What's your plan? Shadow clones to create a diversion on the east side, Naruto explained. When they pull guards from the west wall, we slip in through the servants' entrance. My clones can henge into guards we take down to further confuse them. And once we're inside? Haku asked. Gato sleeps in the central building top floor. Each of us has a role. Naruto turned to Zabuza. You secure our exit path and eliminate anyone who might trap us inside. To Haku, you locate and secure any documentation about Gato's financial holdings, account numbers, property deeds, anything valuable. Then, with cold determination, I'll handle Gato himself. Zabuza let out a low chuckle. You're giving orders to A-rank missing Nin now? You've got guts, kid, not orders, Naruto replied. A strategy that plays to our strengths. If you have a better plan, I'm all ears. After a moment of tense silence, Zabuza nodded. Your plan is sound. But I kill Gato. The man tried to betray me. His life is mine to take. Naruto hesitated, then conceded. Fair enough. I'll assist with intelligence gathering then. As the guards began their rotation, Naruto formed a familiar hand sign. Shadow clone jutsu, he whispered. 20 perfect copies of himself appeared silently in the darkness. Zabuza's eyes widened slightly. Even he couldn't create that many solid clones without significant chakra drain. The boy was full of surprises. Begin the operation, Naruto instructed his clones. You know what to do. The clones nodded and dispersed, moving through the forest with practiced stealth. Minutes later, a series of explosions rocked the eastern perimeter, followed by shouts of alarm. Guards rushed toward the commotion, leaving the western approach vulnerable. Now, Naruto whispered, and the 3 shinobi moved. They crossed the open ground in seconds, reaching the wall without detection. Haku formed a single hand sign, and an ice mirror materialized on the wall's surface. Unlike his usual combat technique, this mirror was designed for infiltration, a reflective passage that would allow them to step through the solid barrier. Impressive, Naruto murmured as they passed through the ice into the compound. Inside, chaos reigned as guards scrambled to address the diversionary attacks. Taking advantage of the confusion, the trio moved swiftly through the shadows, neutralizing any guards they encountered with silent efficiency. Naruto created another clone and had it transform into one of the unconscious guards. Search the east wing, he instructed. Find anything related to Gato's business operations. As they approached the main building, a group of 6 samurai blocked their path. Before Naruto could react, Zabuza moved. Even weakened, the demon of the mist was terrifying to behold. His massive sword cleaved through the air, and the guards fell before they could sound the alarm. Efficient, Naruto commented. Zabuza wiped blood from his blade. This is what you hired me for. They entered the main building through a service entrance, encountering minimal resistance. Most of the security forces had been drawn to the continued disruptions outside, where Naruto's shadow clones were creating an elaborate series of diversions. Top floor, Haku whispered, pointing to a staircase. As they ascended, Naruto sensed movement above. 4 guards outside what must be Gato's room, he informed his companions. 2 more inside, probably his personal bodyguards. How can you tell? Zabuza asked. I can sense their chakra, Naruto replied simply, not elaborating on how unusual this ability was for a genin. Zabuza studied him with narrowed eyes but didn't press further. I'll take the outside guards. Haku, handle the bodyguards. The kid comes with me for Gato. They moved with practiced coordination, as if they'd worked together for years instead of hours. Zabuza emerged from the stairwell in a burst of speed, his sword a blur of motion that cut down the first 2 guards before they could react. The others reached for their weapons, but Haku's Senban found their targets, paralyzing them instantly. Naruto placed silence seals on the door, another technique he shouldn't have known, before they burst into Gato's chambers. The shipping magnate was already awake, alerted by some sound despite Naruto's precautions. He cowered behind his bodyguards, a short man in expensive sleepwear, his face twisted with fear and rage. What is the meaning of this? He demanded, trying to sound authoritative despite his trembling voice. Zabuza? I didn't authorize this operation. Return to your post immediately. Zabuza's laugh was cold enough to freeze blood. My contract with you has been renegotiated. He stepped forward, massive sword gleaming in the dim light. Turns out, I don't appreciate employers who plan to kill me after I've done their dirty work. I don't know what you're talking about, Gato stammered, backing away. Who told you such lies? Was it the boy? You can't trust Konoha ni. Naruto remained silent, observing the final moments of a corrupt man who had brought suffering to an entire country. He felt no pleasure in the coming execution, but no remorse either. Gato had sealed his fate through his own actions. The bodyguards moved to intercept Zabuza, but needles of ice pierced their vital points, and they collapsed, paralyzed but alive. Haku had always been precise in his mercy. Please! I can double your payment. Gato pleaded, all pretense of authority gone. Triple it. You know what I hate most about men like you, Gato? Zabuza asked conversationally, continuing his advance. You think everything and everyone has a price. You never understand that some things, like honor, like loyalty, matter more than money. Since when does the demon of the mist care about honor? Gato spat, desperation turning to defiance in his final moments. Zabuza's sword moved in a clean arc. Since a brat in an orange jacket reminded me of who I used to be, it was over quickly. As Gato's body crumpled to the floor, Naruto turned away, focusing instead on the desk where documents were spread out. Found anything useful? He asked Haku, who was already rifling through papers, account numbers, property deeds, shipping manifests. Haku gathered the documents. Enough to dismantle his organization and redirect his assets. Zabuza cleaned his blade methodically. The bridge builder's country will need funds for reconstruction. Naruto looked up in surprise. It was the first indication Zabuza had given that he cared about Wave Country's fate. What? Zabuza growled. Just because I'm a demon doesn't mean I enjoy seeing civilians starve. A commotion outside drew their attention. Naruto closed his eyes briefly, connecting with his shadow clone's experiences. My clones report increased activity. Someone raised a general alarm. We need to move. One last detail, Zabuza said, lifting Gato's severed head by the hair. A message needs to be sent. Together, they exited the room, encountering a group of guards rushing up the stairs. Haku stepped forward, forming a rapid sequence of hand signs. Secret technique. Crystal ice mirrors. The hallway filled with ice, mirrors forming on every surface. Haku stepped into one, his reflection appearing in all of them simultaneously. What followed was a demonstration of speed and precision that left Naruto impressed despite having read about the technique in the Forbidden Scroll. Saban flew from every direction, striking non-lethal but incapacitating points on each guard. They made their way to the ground floor, encountering sporadic resistance that was quickly neutralized. Outside, the compound was in chaos, Naruto's shadow clones having escalated their diversionary tactics to include transformation into monstrous creatures that terrified the superstitious guards. Impressive technique, Zabuza commented as they observed the havoc. Those aren't ordinary shadow clones. I modified the jutsu, Naruto explained, not mentioning that the modification came from the Forbidden Scroll. They can operate independently for hours and relay information back to me when dispelled. Haku gave him a measuring look. That's a Jonin-level adaptation. Naruto shrugged. I have a lot of chakra to work with. They escaped the compound through the same ice mirror passage they'd used to enter, leaving behind a scene of confusion and fear. None of Gato's men had seen their faces clearly. They would blame the attack on demons or rival criminal organizations. Once safely in the forest, Zabuza turned to Naruto. Not bad for a genin. You've got skills beyond your rank. We all have our secrets, Naruto replied with a small smile. What now? Haku asked. Now, Zabuza said, holding up Gato's head, we deliver a message at the bridge. After that. He paused, looking at Naruto. After that, we need to talk about your future, kid. Naruto raised an eyebrow. My future? You've burned your bridge with Konoha, no pun intended, Zabuza pointed out. Where do you go from here? It was a question Naruto had been considering since he'd first contemplated this path. I don't know yet, he admitted, but I know I can't go back to being the person they expected me to be. Zabuza nodded, as if this confirmed something for him. The shinobi world is changing. Old loyalties are shifting. Someone with your unique talents might find opportunities elsewhere. Like in Kiri? Naruto asked, catching the hint. The resistance could use someone like you, Zabuza confirmed. And with Gato's assets, we'll have the funding we need to support our cause. Haku placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder. Think about it. You wouldn't be alone. The offer was tempting, more tempting than Naruto had expected. He'd never truly belonged in Konoha. Despite his loud proclamations about becoming Hokage, he'd always been an outsider, tolerated rather than accepted. Here, with these two missing men who had seen glimpses of his true abilities and still wanted him around. It felt strangely like finding home. Let's get through tomorrow first, Naruto suggested. After the bridge, I'll give you my answer. Morning at the bridge brought unexpected calm. Kakashi, Sasuke, and Sakura escorted Tazuna to the construction site, all of them tense and watchful, expecting an ambush at any moment. But the mist remained natural, not thickened by chakra as it had been during their first encounter with Zabuza. The workers moved about their tasks, hammering and welding, calling to each other across the massive structure that would soon connect Wave Country to the mainland. It was nearly complete. Perhaps one more day of work, Tazuna estimated. Stay alert, Kakashi instructed his students, his Sharingan still covered but his senses heightened. Zabuza could strike at any moment, but the morning passed without incident. Then noon. The unnatural quiet made everyone more nervous, not less. Something was wrong. Zabuza should have made his move by now. And where was Naruto? Kakashi-sensei, Sakura whispered. What do you think happened to him? The Jonin had been asking himself the same question all morning. I don't know, Sakura. But Naruto is more resourceful than we gave him credit for. Let's trust that he knew what he was doing. If the idiot got himself killed, I'll never forgive him, Sasuke muttered, but there was genuine concern beneath his harsh words. As afternoon approached, a commotion at the far end of the bridge drew their attention. A large group of rough-looking men had appeared, armed with various weapons, swords, clubs, crossbows. They were clearly not construction workers. Gato's thugs, Tazuna breathed, fear evident in his voice. Kakashi stepped forward, positioning himself between the approaching gang and his charges. Sasuke, Sakura, protect Tazuna. This may get messy. The mercenaries advanced, but there was confusion in their ranks. They spoke among themselves, looking around as if expecting someone. Where's the boss? One called out. Gato said he'd meet us here. And where are those shinobi he hired? The one with the big sword? Kakashi tensed, ready for Zabuza to emerge from the mist at any moment. But instead, something else came flying through the air, tumbling end over end before landing with a sickening thud in the center of the bridge. Gato's severed head rolled to a stop at the feet of his hired thugs, his expression frozen in eternal terror. Screams erupted from the mercenaries, many backing away from the grisly sight. Panic spread through their ranks like wildfire. The boss is dead. We're not getting paid. It's a trap. Within moments, what had been an organized force dissolved into chaos. Men fled in all directions, some even leaping from the bridge into the water below in their desperation to escape whatever had befallen their employer. Kakashi didn't lower his guard. Someone had killed Gato, someone with the skill to infiltrate his compound and the ruthlessness to behead him. The most likely candidate was Zabuza. But that didn't explain Naruto's involvement, or his cryptic note. When the last of Gato's men had fled, a heavy silence fell over the bridge. The workers huddled together, whispering about demons and divine retribution. Tazuna stared at Gato's head with a mixture of disgust and satisfaction. The tyrant who had oppressed his country was finally dead. Is it over? Sakura asked, her voice small. I don't think so, Kakashi replied, scanning the mist for any sign of movement. As if summoned by his words, a figure emerged from the fog at the far end of the bridge. Not Zabuza, but the fake hunter Nin, the one who had spirited Zabuza away after their first battle. The young shinobi approached slowly, hands visible to show they weren't holding weapons. Kakashi ready to kunai. That's close enough. The masked ninja stopped. I mean no harm, Kakashi of the Sharingan. I bring a message. From who? Kakashi demanded. From Zabuza, and from Naruto Uzumaki. Sakura gasped behind him. Sasuke tensed, his hand moving toward his weapons pouch. What have you done with our teammate? Kakashi's voice was deadly calm. Nothing he didn't choose, the masked ninja replied. Naruto-kun discovered Gato's plan to betray us all. He warned us, and together, we eliminated the true threat to this country. A slender arm gestured toward Gato's head. Your mission to protect the bridge builder is complete. There is no one left to threaten him. And Naruto? Kakashi pressed. There was a pause. He has chosen a different path. One where his true worth is recognized. The implication struck Kakashi like a physical blow. Naruto hadn't been captured or coerced. He had willingly allied himself with Zabuza and his accomplice. But why? What could they offer that Konoha couldn't? I want to hear that from him directly, Kakashi said. The masked ninja reached into a pouch and withdrew a scroll. He anticipated you would say that. This is for you and your team. With a flick of the wrist, the scroll sailed through the air. Kakashi caught it, keeping his eyes on the messenger. Zabuza-sama and I owe Naruto-kun a debt. He saved us from betrayal and death. In return, We've offered him a place where his abilities need not be hidden. The masked ninja began backing away, returning to the mist. He wants you to know he doesn't consider you enemies. But his path no longer aligns with Konoha's. Wait! Sakura called out. At least tell us who you are. The ninja paused, then reached up and removed the mask, revealing a face of androgynous beauty, pale skin, delicate features, dark eyes filled with a mixture of compassion and resolve. My name is Haku. I serve Zabuza-sama, and now, I also consider Naruto-kun a precious person. With that, Haku replaced the mask and vanished into the mist. Kakashi unrolled the scroll, recognizing Naruto's handwriting immediately. The content was much longer and more detailed than the note he'd left at Tazuna's house. Kakashi-sensei, Sasuke, and Sakura-chan, I'm sorry for leaving the way I did. You deserve a better explanation. For years I've hidden who I really am. Not just from you, but from everyone in Konoha. I've pretended to be less skilled, less knowledgeable, less perceptive than I truly am. It was easier that way. When people expect nothing from you, they don't watch you closely. But I'm tired of pretending. Tired of holding back. Tired of being the dead last, the burden, the liability. With Zabuza and Haku, I can be myself. They've seen what I can do, and they value me for it. I know this looks like betrayal. Maybe it is. But I've thought hard about what it means to be a shinobi, about loyalty and duty and purpose. The Will of Fire talks about protecting those precious to you. The people of Wave Country are precious to me. They remind me of myself, underestimated, oppressed, fighting for recognition. Gato was the real enemy here, not Zabuza and Haku. They were just hired tools, same as us. Now that Gato is gone, their mission is over, and so is ours. The bridge will be completed. Wave Country will prosper. Our objectives have been achieved, just not in the way anyone expected. Zabuza has offered me a place in his plans. He's part of a resistance movement in Kirigakure, fighting against corruption and tyranny. I believe I can make a difference there in ways I never could in Konoha. Tell the old man I'm sorry to disappoint him. Tell Iruka-sensei thank you for everything. Tell Konohamaru to find his own ninja way. Maybe our paths will cross again someday. If they do, I hope it won't be as enemies. Take care of each other. Naruto, P.S. Sasuke. I know you'll call me a coward for leaving. That's okay. Just remember, true strength isn't about what jutsu you know or how many enemies you defeat. It's about having the courage to choose your own path, even when everyone expects you to follow theirs. Kakashi's hand tightened on the scroll. The maturity of the message, the clarity of thought. This was not the Naruto he thought he knew. This was someone else entirely. Someone who had been hidden beneath a carefully constructed mask of incompetence and brashness. What does it say, Kakashi-sensei? Sakura asked, her voice trembling. Naruto's gone, he replied simply, passing her the scroll. He's joined Zabuza and Haku. He's leaving the village. Sasuke snatched the scroll after Sakura finished reading, his expression darkening with each line. The Dobe's throwing away everything for missing Nin? He growled. What does he think he's doing? Following his ninja way, apparently, Kakashi said, a heaviness settling in his chest. He had failed as a sensei, failed to see beneath Naruto's facade, failed to provide the recognition and guidance the boy clearly needed. And now the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, the son of the fourth Hokage, had left Konoha. The implications were staggering. Miles away, three figures moved through the forest, heading northeast toward the land of water. Naruto walked between Zabuza and Haku, his orange jumpsuit discarded in favor of darker clothing borrowed from Haku. A new chapter of his life had begun. Do you think they'll come after us? Haku asked. Eventually, Zabuza replied. Konoha won't let its Jinchuriki go easily. Naruto nodded. The Hokage will send ANBU. Probably already has tracking teams mobilized. Can they find us? Haku looked concerned. Not if we use the route I suggested, Naruto assured him. I've been studying evasion techniques for years, planning escape routes from Konoha since I was 8. I know how to avoid their trackers. Zabuza gave him an appraising look. You've been planning to leave for a long time. Not exactly, Naruto admitted. I always thought I'd stay and become Hokage, prove my worth to everyone who doubted me. But after seeing how Team 7 works, how the village operates, I realized I was chasing acceptance from people who would never truly see me. And you think you'll find that acceptance in Kiri? Zabuza asked skeptically. Naruto shrugged. I don't know. But I'm more likely to find it with people who accept me for who I really am, not who they want me to be. Haku smiled. Well said, Naruto-kun. They continued in companionable silence, each lost in their own thoughts. For Naruto, it was a bittersweet moment. He was leaving behind the only home he'd ever known, people who, despite everything, he still cared about. But he was also moving towards something new, a place where his abilities would be valued, where he could make a difference without the weight of Konoha's expectations and prejudices. Are you certain of this path, kid? Kurama's voice rumbled in his mind. As certain as I can be, Naruto replied mentally. Do you disagree with my choice? The fox was silent for a moment. Your path is your own to choose. But know this, leaving Konoha will make you a target for more than just their hunters. There are others who seek power like mine. The Akatsuki, Naruto nodded mentally. The Forbidden Scroll had contained fragmentary information about the mysterious organization that hunted Biju. All the more reason to get stronger, to form new alliances. Just be cautious with whom you trust, Kurama warned. Not all who smile at you wish you well. Naruto glanced at his new companions. I think these two are different. They've shown me their true selves from the beginning, not hidden behind masks of false concern. Something wrong, kid? Zabuza asked, noticing Naruto's momentary distraction. Just thinking about the road ahead, Naruto replied. It's a long way to Kiri. We'll take a boat from a small port I know, Zabuza explained. The crossing is dangerous, but we've made it before, Haku added, and once we reach Kiri, we'll connect with the resistance. They have safe houses throughout the country, Naruto nodded, appreciating being included in the planning rather than being treated as a child who needed protection. It was a novel experience, being taken seriously. What about the funds from Gato? He asked. Zabuza patted a scroll tucked into his belt. Secured. Enough to finance the resistance for months, plus what we've set aside for Wave Country's reconstruction. You really did that? Naruto was surprised. A demon can have principles, Zabuza replied gruffly. Besides, it was your idea. As they continued their journey, Naruto felt a growing certainty that he made the right choice. For the first time in his life, he was following a path of his own choosing, not one dictated by the expectations of others. Whatever lay ahead, he would face it as his true self. The Hokage's office was silent save for the occasional tap of ash from Hiruzen Sarutobi's pipe. Before him stood Kakashi, his mission report delivered, the implications hanging heavy in the air. You're certain? The third Hokage asked, his weathered face grave. Naruto left willingly? His message was clear, Kakashi confirmed, handing over the scroll. He wasn't coerced or captured. He chose to go with Zabuza and his accomplice. Hiruzen read the scroll, his expression growing more troubled with each line. This is unexpected. The Naruto I know would never abandon his dream of becoming Hokage. With all due respect, Hokage-sama, Kakashi said carefully, I don't think either of us knew the real Naruto. His letter suggests he's been hiding his true abilities for years. Abilities? Hiruzen looked up sharply. What abilities? I don't know the full extent, Kakashi admitted. But based on what I saw in Wave Country, and what his new allies said, he's far more skilled than he ever let on. Possibly Jonin level in some areas. Hiruzen leaned back in his chair, puffing thoughtfully on his pipe. The implications are serious. A Jinchuriki defecting, and not just any Jinchuriki, but Minato's son. I've already dispatched my Niken to try tracking him, Kakashi said. But they lost the trail at the coast. It seems they're heading to the land of water. Kirigakure, Hiruzen nodded. Zabuza Momochi is rumored to be involved with the resistance movement there. If they've found a way across the strait. He sighed heavily. We need to recover Naruto before word of this spreads. I'll assemble a tracking team immediately, Kakashi volunteered. No. Hiruzen's voice was firm. You'll return to the village with your remaining students. I'll send ANBU for this mission. If Naruto has indeed joined forces with A-rank missing Nin, this is beyond a regular tracking mission. Kakashi bowed his head in acknowledgement, though frustration churned within him. Naruto had been his responsibility, his failure. What about Team 7? He asked. For now, you'll continue with Sasuke and Sakura. I'll consider adding a replacement for Naruto after I've consulted with the council. Hiruzen tapped his pipe against his desk. But understand this, Kakashi, officially, Naruto is to be listed as missing, not as a defector. The political ramifications of a Jinchuriki defection would be problematic. And unofficially? Hiruzen's eyes hardened. Unofficially, we need to bring him home before others learn of his status and decide to claim him for themselves. News of Naruto's disappearance spread through Konoha like wildfire, despite the Hokage's attempts to control the information. The official story was that he had been separated from his team during a mission and was presumed lost. Search parties were being organized. There was no cause for alarm, but rumors proliferated, as they always did in a village of shinobi trained in information gathering. Some said Naruto had been captured by enemy Nin, others whispered that the demon fox had finally taken control. A few even suggested the boy had simply run away, fed up with the village's treatment of him. In the Hyuga compound, Hinata Hyuga wept silently in her room, her heart breaking for the boy she had always admired from afar. She didn't believe the official story for a moment. Naruto-kun was too determined, too resilient to simply get lost. Something terrible must have happened. At the academy, Iruka Yumino received the news with shock and disbelief. He immediately requested leave to join the search parties, only to be denied by the Hokage himself. The confusion and hurt in his eyes spoke volumes. He had believed in Naruto when few others did, had seen his potential, his good heart. How could he have disappeared without a word? In the darker corners of the village, other reactions were taking place. Danzo Shimura, bandaged and seemingly frail, received the report of the Ninetales Jinchuriki's defection with outward concern but inner calculation. A weapon had slipped from Konoha's grasp. A weapon he had long argued should have been under his control. Perhaps this setback could be turned to his advantage. The council was convened in emergency session, the elders demanding explanations, casting blame, arguing over the appropriate response. Koharu and Hamura insisted on classifying Naruto as a rogue ninja immediately, authorizing his capture or elimination. Hiruzen, his face set in stone, overruled them. The boy would be found and brought home, alive. In the midst of the political turmoil, two young genin processed their teammates' absence in their own ways. Sasuke Uchiha trained until his knuckles bled, attacking training posts with furious intensity. The Dobe had surpassed him in some way, had hidden his true potential, had chosen a different path to power. It was unsettling. Everything Sasuke thought he knew about the team dynamic had been upended. If Naruto had been hiding his abilities all this time, what else had Sasuke missed? What other paths to power existed beyond the village's structured hierarchy? Sakura Haruno sat by herself on the bridge where Team 7 used to meet, reading and rereading Naruto's letter. The words tired of being the dead last, the burden, the liability cut deeper than she would have expected. Had she contributed to that feeling with her constant criticism, her dismissal of his efforts? The thought that she might have pushed her teammate toward defection weighed heavily on her conscience. As night fell over Konoha, 4A and BU squads departed from different gates, moving in separate directions to hide their true destination. Their mission parameters were clear: find Naruto Uzumaki, assess his situation, and bring him back to Konoha. By persuasion if possible, by force if necessary. But they were already too late. By the time the first A and BU team reached the Land of Waves, their quarry had vanished into the mist surrounding the Land of Water, a realm notoriously difficult for Konoha shinobi to penetrate. Naruto Uzumaki had made his choice. The pieces on the board had shifted, and the consequences would ripple through the shinobi world in ways no one could yet predict. The sea churned beneath their small boat, white-capped waves slapping against the hull as they navigated through the treacherous waters separating the Land of Waves from the Land of Water. A dense fog had settled over the strait, reducing visibility to mere feet. For most travelers, these conditions would have been perilous to the point of madness, but for the three shinobi, the mist provided perfect cover from pursuing Konoha forces. Zabuza stood at the helm, his massive frame silhouetted against the grayness, guiding them through hidden channels known only to Kiri's most experienced shinobi. Haku sat midship, periodically using his ice abilities to reinforce the hull against the battering waves. In the bow, Naruto peered ahead, his enhanced senses, courtesy of Kurama, allowing him to detect obstacles in their path before they became visible. "There's a rock formation about 30 meters ahead," Naruto called back, his voice barely audible over the crashing waves. "Large outcropping on the port side." Zabuza adjusted their course without question, having learned over the past 3 days of travel to trust the boy's uncanny perceptions. "We're close," he announced, "the outer markers of Kiri's territorial waters. Security will be tighter from here on." "Will they attack us?" Naruto asked, scanning the mist for signs of patrol boats. "Depends on who's on duty," Zabuza replied grimly. "I wasn't exactly popular with the previous administration." "The bloody mist," Naruto murmured, recalling information from the Forbidden Scroll. Kirigakure had earned its grim nickname during the reign of the 4th Mizukage, when policies of brutal combat training, including forcing classmates to fight to the death, had created a generation of traumatized, lethal shinobi. Zabuza's harsh laugh carried over the waves. "That's right, kid. And I was one of its bloodiest products. Killed my entire graduating class before I even became a genin." Naruto absorbed this information without visible reaction. "Things are different now, though. The rebellion succeeded in part, right? New leadership?" "Mei Terumi," Haku confirmed, moving to join Naruto at the bow. The fifth Mizukage. She's been reforming Kiri for several years now, dismantling the old systems. But change comes slowly, and not everyone supports her vision, which is why we've been funding the resistance, Zabuza added. To ensure the reforms continue, to prevent a return to the old ways. The conversation paused as they navigated through a particularly narrow channel between jagged rocks. The mist thickened around them, no longer natural but charged with chakra, a defensive measure surrounding Kirigakure proper. We've entered the hidden mist, Haku explained, noticing Naruto's questioning look. A perpetual jutsu maintained by the village's defensive core. It confuses sensors and disorients invaders. Clever, Naruto remarked, studying how the chakra patterns interwove to create the disorienting effect. Already, his mind was analyzing how such a technique might be countered or adapted. The Forbidden Scroll had contained theories on village-wide defensive measures, but seeing one in practice was different. The mist parted suddenly, revealing a breathtaking sight. Kirigakure rose from the sea like a vision from another world. Unlike Konoha's sprawling layout, Kiri was built vertically, its structures climbing the steep coastal mountains in tiers. Buildings of gray stone and weathered wood seemed to grow from the rocky terrain, connected by narrow winding streets and stone stairways. The architecture was distinctly different from Konoha's, more angular, with sloped roofs designed to channel the frequent rain. Near the harbor, massive cylindrical towers rose like sentinels, their tops disappearing into the mist. These, Naruto surmised, would be administrative buildings and likely the Mizukage's residence. It's beautiful, he breathed, genuinely impressed by the hidden village's dramatic setting. It's home, Haku said simply, a note of fondness in his voice despite his complicated history with the land of water. A land that had once persecuted those with Kekkai Genkai, like his eyes release. As their boat approached the harbor, Naruto noticed a welcoming committee that was anything but welcoming. A dozen Kiri shinobi in gray uniforms stood on the dock, their postures tense, hands near their weapons. At their center stood a tall woman with auburn hair and a blue dress, her presence commanding even at a distance. The Mizukage herself, Zabuza muttered, surprise evident in his voice. Wasn't expecting that. Is that good or bad? Naruto asked, preparing himself for potential combat. Could go either way, Zabuza replied. Be ready for anything, but let me do the talking. After a pause, he added, at least initially, they docked under the watchful eyes of the Kiri forces. As Zabuza stepped onto the pier, the tension became palpable. Several shinobi reached for their weapons, only to be halted by a subtle gesture from the Mizukage. Zabuza Momochi, she said, her voice carrying clearly despite the mist. The demon of the hidden mist returns. Should I consider this a surrender or an invasion? Zabuza performed a slight bow, not subservient, but respectful. Neither, Lady Mizukage. I return seeking asylum, bringing valuable intelligence and resources for Kiri's future. Mei's visible eye narrowed. You've been funding the resistance. Some would call that treason against the village. I've been funding the resistance, Zabuza agreed, to support your reforms, to ensure Kiri never returns to the bloody mist policies. My methods may be questionable, but my goals align with yours more than you might think. Several of the shinobi surrounding Mei shifted uncomfortably at this frank discussion of village politics in front of outsiders. Naruto observed the subtle power dynamics at play. Clearly, not all of Mei's forces were fully committed to her vision of a reformed Kiri. The Mizukage's gaze shifted to Haku, then lingered on Naruto, her expression unreadable. And who are your companions? One I recognize as your tool, but the other. Her eyes widened slightly, recognition dawning. A Konoha shinobi? No, more specifically, the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. Murmurs spread through the assembled shinobi. Jinchuriki were rare and valuable, their status as living weapons making them both respected and feared. That Zabuza would return with Konoha's Jinchuriki was unprecedented. Before Zabuza could respond, Naruto stepped forward, sensing the conversation heading in a dangerous direction. With respect, Lady Mizukage, he said, his voice calm and measured, nothing like the loud, brash persona he'd maintained in Konoha. I am Naruto Uzumaki, formerly of Konohagakure. I've chosen to leave my village and seek a new path. Zabuza-san and Haku-san have offered me sanctuary in return for my assistance with recent operations. The Mizukage's eyebrows rose at his articulate and diplomatic approach. Clearly, she had been briefed on Konoha's Jinchuriki and expected someone very different. You understand that harboring you could be considered an act of aggression against Konoha? She questioned. Naruto nodded. I do. However, I left of my own volition, leaving clear documentation of my decision. While the Hokage may not be pleased, My departure was neither forced nor coerced, giving Konoha limited legal grounds for demanding my return under the shinobi accords of the second peace. Complete silence followed his statement. Even Zabuza glanced at him with newfound respect. The shinobi accords were complex diplomatic arrangements that few genin would know about, much less cite correctly in international negotiations. Well played, Kit, Kurama commented within Naruto's mind. Your study of those dusty legal scrolls is finally proving useful. Mei Terumi studied Naruto with increasing interest. You're well informed for one so young. I've had access to unconventional education, Naruto replied diplomatically, not mentioning the forbidden scroll. The tension on the dock eased slightly as Mei smiled. I can see that. She turned back to Zabuza. You always did have an eye for talent, Zabuza. The kid's full of surprises, Zabuza agreed. Mei considered for a moment, then came to a decision. You will be allowed into the village under surveillance. Your case will be reviewed properly, and your intelligence evaluated. Until then, consider yourselves guests rather than citizens, with all the limitations that implies. Understood, Zabuza replied, knowing this was as good an outcome as they could have hoped for. Ao Mei addressed the stern-looking man with an eye patch. Escort them to the southeastern district. The vacant compound near the training grounds should suffice. The man named Ao bowed. As you wish, Lady Mizukage. To the three newcomers, he said, follow me. And know that I'll be watching you closely. As they moved through Kiri's streets, Naruto absorbed every detail. Unlike Konoha's open layout and vibrant colors, Kirigakure was a study in subtle complexity. The narrow streets wound between buildings of stone and dark wood, often climbing steeply or descending into tunnel-like passages. Moisture clung to every surface, feeding the moss and lichen that adorned older structures. Citizens moved with purpose, their clothing practical and subdued compared to Konoha's more varied fashions. The village infrastructure is built around water management, Haku explained, noticing Naruto's interest. The channels beneath the streets collect rainwater and direct it to reservoirs for both civilian use and shinobi training. They ascended a long stairway cut directly into the mountainside, passing residential areas that became progressively less crowded. Eventually, they reached a walled compound set apart from neighboring buildings. This will be your residence, Ao announced, pushing open a heavy wooden gate. 3 main buildings, training yard, and private dock. 2 A and B will be stationed outside at all times. Don't attempt to leave without authorization. Inside, the compound was modest but well maintained. The main house featured traditional architecture, paper screens, tatami floors, a central hearth. 2 smaller buildings flanked it, likely servant quarters or storage in its original configuration. The Mizukage will summon you tomorrow for debriefing, Ao informed them. Until then, stay within these walls. With that, he departed, leaving them alone save for the unseen A and BU presence. Could be worse, Zabuza remarked, surveying their new home. Last time I was in Kiri, they wanted me in a cell or a coffin. The Mizukage seems reasonable, Naruto observed, setting down his meager possessions. You think she'll grant your asylum request? Mei is pragmatic, Zabuza replied. If we prove valuable, she'll work with us. The intelligence we gathered from Gato, the funds we secured for the resistance, these give us leverage. And what about me? Naruto asked the question that had been weighing on his mind. I'm a complication for you. Konoha will demand my return. Zabuza exchanged a glance with Haku before answering. You're not a complication, kid. You're an asset. Jinchuriki are rare and powerful. Mei would be a fool to hand you back to Konoha, especially when you came willingly. We won't let them take you, Naruto-kun, Haku added with quiet conviction. Naruto felt a warmth spread through him at their words. It was strange to feel so accepted by people who had been enemies just days ago, especially when his own village had kept him at arm's length for years. They spent the evening settling in, each claiming a room in the main house. Haku prepared a simple meal from supplies Ao had provided, and they ate together around the central hearth, discussing their situation and planning for the days ahead. We should be strategic about what information we share with Mei, Zabuza advised. Gato's financial records are our primary bargaining chip. We release details gradually, maintaining our value. What about the resistance contacts? Haku asked. Should we connect them with the Mizukage directly? Zabuza considered this. Not immediately. We need to assess her position first, determine how secure her power base is. Naruto listened intently, absorbing their approach to navigating village politics. It was refreshingly direct compared to the layers of deception and hidden agendas he'd observed in Konoha's administration. And what about my training? He asked eventually. I'd like to continue developing my skills, but I'm not sure how much I should reveal. Show enough to establish your value, Zabuza suggested, but keep your most unique abilities in reserve. In the shinobi world, secrets are sometimes more valuable than known skills. Haku added, I can continue helping you with chakra control and elemental manipulation. The water nature techniques I know would complement your wind affinity. I appreciate that, Naruto said sincerely. And I'd like to learn more about your ice release if you're willing to share. I may not have the Kekkei Genkai, but understanding the principles could help me develop my own techniques. Haku smiled, clearly pleased by Naruto's interest. I'd be honored to teach you what I know. As night fell over Kirigakure, Naruto sat on the engawa, the wooden veranda overlooking their small garden. The mist had thinned somewhat, revealing stars above the village. The rhythmic sound of waves against the distant shore created a peaceful backdrop for his thoughts. You seem content with your decision, Kurama observed within his mindscape. I am, Naruto replied. For the first time, I feel like I can be myself. No masks, no pretending to be less than I am. These missing men have accepted you more readily than your own village, Kurama noted. But trust should be earned slowly, Kit. I know. I'm cautious, but hopeful. Zabuza values strength and honesty. Haku understands what it's like to be feared for something you were born with. They're not so different from me. And the Mizukage? What do you make of her? Naruto considered this. She's pragmatic, as Zabuza said. She'll use us if we're useful, discard us if we're not. But that's honest in its way, better than hidden resentment masked by false smiles. Kurama rumbled in agreement. Perhaps. This village of mist may prove a better home than the village of leaves. Time will tell. The following weeks established a rhythm to their new lives in Kirigakure. Their meeting with the Mizukage had gone well, with Zabuza providing enough intelligence about external threats to Kiri to demonstrate his value without revealing all his sources. Naruto had been questioned extensively about his departure from Konoha, the Mizukage particularly interested in whether he had been pursued or if Konoha had made any attempts to retrieve him. They'll come eventually, Naruto had told her honestly. The question is whether they'll send diplomats or assassins first. Mei had seemed amused by his bluntness. And which would you prefer, young Uzumaki? Neither, he'd replied. I'd prefer they accept my choice and move on. But villages don't surrender weapons willingly, and that's what they see me as. This insight into Konoha's thinking had impressed the Mizukage enough to grant them provisional status as Kiri residents, though not yet as official shinobi. They were allowed free movement within the village but required escorts for any travel beyond the walls. Their compound gradually transformed from a temporary shelter to a home. Zabuza, surprisingly, revealed a talent for carpentry, repairing damaged sections of the buildings and constructing training equipment in the yard. Haku cultivated a small herb garden, growing plants with both medicinal and culinary uses. Naruto, for his part, applied his knowledge of seals to establish security measures around their perimeter, not out of distrust for their hosts, but as a demonstration of his skills and a precaution against potential Konoha infiltrators. Each morning began with training. Zabuza focused on kenjutsu, teaching Naruto the fundamentals of swordsmanship. While the boy might never wield a blade like the Kubikuribocho, the principles of movement and timing applied to all combat. Haku conducted chakra control exercises, marveling at Naruto's reserves while helping him refine his precision. In the afternoons, they would often separate. Zabuza attended meetings with Kiri's intelligence division, providing information about neighboring countries and criminal organizations. Haku studied with the medical corps, his knowledge of medicinal herbs and precise chakra control making him a natural healer. Naruto divided his time between the village library, absorbing Kiri's history and jutsu theory, and private training where he could practice the more sensitive techniques from the Forbidden Scroll without observation. Evenings were spent together, sharing what they had learned and planning for their future in Kiri. It was during these quiet moments that their unusual bond strengthened. A makeshift family formed from 3 damaged souls who had found unexpected understanding in each other. A month into their residence, Naruto's status in the village underwent a significant change following an incident at the main training grounds. He had been practicing water walking, a skill he had mastered privately but maintained the pretense of learning to avoid suspicion, when a group of Kiri genin arrived for their own training. Their Jonin sensei, recognizing Naruto as the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, had made a disparaging comment about Konoha's inability to properly train their weapons. Naruto had ignored the provocation, but one of the genin, eager to impress his teacher, had launched a water bullet jutsu directly at Naruto's back. Without turning, Naruto had created a perfect water wall that absorbed the attack, then calmly manipulated the water into a dragon that circled him protectively before dissipating back into the pond. Word of the incident spread quickly. That a foreign shinobi, especially one so young, could perform water manipulation of that caliber in Kiri, a village renowned for its water jutsu mastery, attracted attention. The Mizukage summoned Naruto the following day. Your water manipulation is impressive for one not native to Kiri, she observed, studying him with increased interest, particularly since your file from Konoha indicates wind as your primary affinity. Naruto bowed respectfully. Thank you, Lady Mizukage. My wind affinity is natural, but I've worked to develop proficiency with other elements as well. Multiple elemental affinities in one so young? Her eyebrow arched. Unusual. I've had unique training opportunities, Naruto replied carefully. So it seems. Mei leaned forward. I'd like to have our chakra specialists assess your elemental affinities more formally. If you're agreeable, of course. Naruto recognized the request for what it was, more evaluation of his potential value to Kiri, but also an opportunity to establish his position more securely. I would be honored, he replied. The testing took place that afternoon in a specialized dojo designed for elemental training. The chakra specialist, an older woman with silver hair and faded blue tattoos on her hands, presented Naruto with a set of special papers. These are more refined than standard chakra paper, she explained. They'll react not just to presence of affinity but to strength and potential for development. Naruto took the first paper between his fingers and channeled his chakra. As expected, it split cleanly, indicating his wind affinity. But then the pieces crumbled at the edges, earth, dampened slightly, water, charred in spots, fire, and emitted a faint crackle, lightning. The specialist's eyes widened. 5 affinities? That's unprecedented in someone your age. Is it a problem? Naruto asked, though he already knew how unusual his case was. Not a problem, she replied, making notes on a scroll. But it suggests bloodline potential beyond what's recorded for Uzumaki clan members. Perhaps dormant Kekkei Genkai activation or... She hesitated. Or influence from the Nine Tails. Naruto nodded. Kurama, the Nine Tails, and I have reached an understanding. His chakra no longer fights mine but harmonizes with it. The woman nearly dropped her brush. You communicate with the Biju? By name. We've come to an arrangement, Naruto explained, intentionally vague. He was sealed within me at birth. We share this body, this life. Cooperation benefits us both. After recovering from her surprise, the specialist conducted additional tests, measuring chakra output, control precision, and elemental strength. When she finally dismissed him, Naruto knew his status in Kiri had shifted again. No longer would he be seen as merely Zabuza's unusual companion. He had established himself as a shinobi of significant potential in his own right. 3 months after their arrival in Kirigakure, a routine training session led to a discovery that would further transform Naruto's standing in the village. He had been practicing combining wind and water chakra under Haku's guidance, attempting to create a technique that mimicked aspects of ice release without requiring the Kekkei Genkai. The principle is balanced transformation, Haku explained, demonstrating with his own chakra. Water provides structure, wind provides movement and sharpening. Without the bloodline limit to fuse them naturally, you must maintain both transformations simultaneously. Naruto focused intensely, drawing on the theoretical knowledge from the Forbidden Scroll and his practical experience with elemental manipulation. He formed the hand signs slowly, dog, boar, ram, then molded his chakra, attempting to balance the swirling wind and flowing water natures. The jutsu failed, water splashing harmlessly to the ground. Naruto frowned, adjusting his approach. I'm getting the sequence right, but the balance is off. Try adjusting the ratio, Haku suggested. More water, less wind. Naruto nodded, reforming the signs and concentrating. This time, something unexpected happened. As he molded the chakra, he felt a third element emerge, not wind or water, but something earthy and vital. Wooden tendrils sprouted from the ground around his feet, growing rapidly into a small dome that encircled him. Naruto-kun! Haku called in alarm, rushing forward as the wooden structure stopped growing. Inside, Naruto stared at his hands in shock. Wood release, Mokutun, was one of the most famous and rare abilities in shinobi history, exclusively associated with Hashirama Senju, the first Hokage of Konoha. It was not a technique that could be learned. It was a Kekkei Genkai believed extinct. Kurama, what just happened? He asked mentally. The fox seemed equally surprised. Hashirama's cells must be present in your body somehow. Perhaps through the sealed design, or something done to you as an infant. I was sealed within Mito Uzumaki, Hashirama's wife, before your mother. The connection is not impossible. Using a kunai, Naruto carved an opening in the wooden dome and emerged to find not just Haku but Zabuza and several Kiri and Biju staring at him. The commotion had drawn attention. Would release, Zabuza stated flatly. You neglected to mention that particular skill. I didn't know I had it, Naruto replied honestly. This is the first time it's manifested. One of the A and BU disappeared, undoubtedly to report to the Mizukage. The others maintained their positions, watching Naruto with new wariness. This changes things, Zabuza said quietly. Wood release is the only known ability that can fully control tailed beasts. Hashirama used it to capture and distribute the Biju to the 5 great nations. It's what made him a legend. Haku approached cautiously, examining the wooden structure. It's remarkable craftsmanship for an accidental manifestation. The cellular structure appears stable. Within an hour, Naruto found himself once again in the Mizukage's office, explaining what had occurred. Mei Terumi listened with an expression that shifted from skepticism to calculation to something approaching wonder. Demonstrate, she commanded when he had finished his explanation. Naruto nodded, forming the same sequence of hand signs. This time, prepared for the sensation, he directed the emerging wood release more precisely. A small tree grew from the office floor, its branches forming an elegant pattern before he released the jutsu. Extraordinary, Mei murmured. Wood release has not been seen since the era of the first Hokage. Its emergence in you, combined with your status as Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails. She left the implications hanging. I understand this makes my position here more complicated, Naruto acknowledged. If Konoha learns of this ability, they'll double their efforts to reclaim me. On the contrary, Mei replied, it strengthens your position in Kiri. You've just become too valuable for us to ever consider returning to Konoha. She smiled, though there was a calculating edge to it. Congratulations, Naruto Uzumaki. Consider your probationary period ended. I'll have formal registration documents prepared declaring you a shinobi of Kirigakure. The news should have been entirely positive, but Naruto detected the subtle shift in how the Mizukage regarded him. Less as a person and more as a powerful asset. It was not so different from how the Konoha elders had viewed him, though at least Mei was honest about her appraisal. When he returned to their compound that evening, Naruto found Haku waiting on the engawa, concern evident in his gentle features. Are you alright? Haku asked as Naruto sat beside him. Today's developments were significant. I'm processing it, Naruto admitted. Wood release is a serious complication. It makes me more valuable, but also a bigger target. Haku nodded understanding. The Mizukage will protect you as an asset of Kiri, but that protection comes with expectations. Exactly. I've traded one cage for another, in some ways. Naruto sighed, looking up at the mist-shrouded moon. Though at least here, the cage is larger and the bars less visible. You're not alone, Haku said softly, placing a hand on Naruto's arm. Zabuza-sama and I understand what it means to be valued for your abilities rather than yourself. We will stand with you, no matter what comes. The simple touch and earnest words caused something to shift in Naruto's perception of Haku. He had always appreciated the older boy's kindness and wisdom, but in that moment, he recognized the deeper connection forming between them, a bond built on shared experiences and mutual understanding. Thank you, Haku, he said, covering Haku's hand with his own. That means more than you know. A slight flush colored Haku's pale cheeks, and he withdrew his hand almost reluctantly. Your wood release training will begin tomorrow. The Mizukage has assigned a specialist in plant-based jutsu to assist you. Will you still help me with ice techniques? Naruto asked, suddenly concerned that his new status might separate him from his companions. Of course, Haku assured him with a gentle smile. Some might say it's pointless without the Kekkei Genkai, but I believe you'll find a way to adapt the principles, as you have with so many other techniques. Their conversation was interrupted by Zabuza's arrival, his imposing figure silhouetted against the lamplight from within the house. The political landscape just got more complicated, he announced without preamble. Word of your wood release has already spread through the upper echelons of Kiri's administration. The council is divided on how to proceed. They fear what Konoha might do to reclaim me, Naruto surmised. Some do, Zabuza confirmed. Others see you as an opportunity to establish Kiri as a major power again. And a few. He hesitated. A few what? Naruto prompted. A few see the potential for Kiri to have its own weapon against other Biju. Zabuza finished bluntly. Your wood release combined with the Nine Tails makes you uniquely capable of capturing and subduing other tailed beasts. Naruto's expression hardened. I won't be a weapon used to hunt other Jinchuriki. They're like me, people, not tools. Zabuza studied him for a moment, then nodded. I thought you'd say that. For what it's worth, I agree. Using Biju as weapons hasn't brought peace to any nation. It's just escalated the arms race. What should we do? Haku asked. For now, we cooperate, Zabuza advised. Train, develop your skills, establish your value beyond just these special abilities. Build relationships with Kiri shinobi who see you as more than a weapon. Create a position that can't be easily reduced to a tool. Naruto nodded, appreciating the strategic approach. And if that fails, then we adapt, Zabuza replied simply. We've all survived as outsiders before. We can do it again if necessary. The casual inclusion of Naruto in Zabuza's plans for the future solidified what Naruto had begun to feel, that despite their unusual circumstances, the three of them had formed a genuine bond, a makeshift family of sorts. 6 months into their residence in Kirigakure, life had established a comfortable pattern. Naruto's training with wood release progressed steadily, though without Hashirama's innate genius with the ability. His growth was methodical rather than explosive. He could create structures of moderate complexity, and had begun experimenting with combat applications, but the chakra drain remained significant. His other abilities continued to develop as well. Under Zabuza's tutelage, his taijutsu had improved dramatically, incorporating the silent killing techniques that made Kiri shinobi so feared. Haku's lessons in precise chakra control enhanced his ability to perform complex jutsu with minimal waste, stretching his already vast reserves even further. The village had gradually accepted their presence, moving from suspicion to cautious integration. Zabuza now served as a special advisor to the Mizukage on external threats, his knowledge of criminal organizations proving invaluable. Haku had earned respect in the medical corps, his gentle demeanor and precise techniques making him a gifted healer. Naruto split his time between specialized training and diplomatic functions, where the Mizukage increasingly utilized his unique background and perspective. Their compound had transformed as well, becoming a true home. The main house featured training rooms adapted for their specific needs, living spaces decorated with items from Kiri's markets, and a library filled with scrolls on jutsu theory and history. The garden had expanded under Haku's care, now including plants from across the land of water. Most significantly, their status had been officially recognized. Zabuza's criminal classification had been removed, replaced with a rank equivalent to Jonin. Haku and Naruto had been granted special Chunin status, acknowledging their abilities while recognizing their unusual entry into Kiri's shinobi forces. It was during this period of relative stability that a diplomatic delegation from Kumo arrived in Kiri, ostensibly to discuss trade agreements and border security. In reality, as Zabuza informed them after a meeting with the Mizukage, the visit had more significant implications. The Reikage is testing waters, he explained as they ate dinner that evening. With rumors of your presence here, Naruto, he's curious about Kiri's ambitions regarding tailed beasts. They have 2 Jinchuriki in Kumo, don't they? Naruto recalled from his studies. The 2 tails and 8 tails, Zabuza nodded. And both are fully trained, integrated members of their shinobi forces, not weapons kept on a leash like in some villages. The implication about Konoha's treatment of Naruto was clear. Will I be meeting the delegation? Naruto asked. The Mizukage has requested your presence at tomorrow evening's formal reception, Haku confirmed. She believes showing you as a respected member of Kiri's forces will send the right message to Kumo, which is that Kiri treats its Jinchuriki as valuable shinobi, not mere weapons, Zabuza replied. It's a soft power play, but an important one. The relationship between hidden villages often depends on such perceptions. The following evening found Naruto dressed in formal attire provided by the Mizukage staff. Dark blue robes with subtle wave patterns in silver thread, the Kirigakure symbol embroidered on the back. It was the first time he had worn any village symbol other than Konoha's leaf, and the weight of that change was not lost on him. The reception was held in the Mizukage's residence, a cylindrical tower that offered panoramic views of the village through windows designed to let in light while keeping out the persistent mist. Diplomats and high-ranking shinobi from both villages mingled in the central hall, their conversations creating a constant murmur beneath the soft music provided by a traditional ensemble. Naruto entered alongside Haku, who looked elegant in similar formal wear, his long hair gathered in a high ponytail. Zabuza had arrived earlier with the Mizukage's entourage, his role as advisor requiring his presence during preliminary discussions. Remember, Haku murmured as they passed through the entrance, observe first, speak second. Diplomatic functions are battlefields of information. Naruto nodded, already scanning the room with senses enhanced by both training and Kurama's influence. He identified key figures quickly, the head of the Kumo delegation, a stern man with a white beard, several Kiri council members, their posture stiff with political awareness, and positioned near a large window, a figure that instantly captured his attention. She stood slightly apart from the main Kumo group, a young woman perhaps 3 or 4 years older than Naruto, with blonde hair tied back in a tight ponytail. Her posture was alert yet relaxed, suggesting combat readiness even in this diplomatic setting. She wore a fitted purple and black outfit that, while formal by Kumo standards, clearly allowed for mobility. But it wasn't her appearance that drew Naruto's attention. It was the distinctive chakra signature he sensed, powerful, controlled, and wrapped around a core of energy that resonated with something inside him. Matatabi, Kurama growled within his mind, confirming Naruto's suspicion. The two tails. So Kumo sent their Jinchuriki. Is that significant? Naruto asked mentally. Very. They're not just curious. They're making a direct comparison. Jinchuriki to Jinchuriki. Before Naruto could respond, he noticed the young woman had turned toward him, her eyes, dark and intense, meeting his across the room. A flicker of recognition crossed her features, and Naruto realized she must have sensed Kurama just as he had sensed Matatabi. The Mizukage's arrival interrupted the moment, her entrance drawing all attention. Mei Terumi moved through the gathering with practiced grace, greeting key figures and ensuring conversations flowed productively. When she reached Naruto and Haku, her smile contained a hint of satisfaction. Naruto, Haku, I'm pleased you could join us, she said. There are several people I'd like you to meet. With a subtle gesture, she guided them toward the Kumo delegation. The introductions proceeded formally, with Naruto maintaining the diplomatic poise he had cultivated over the past months. When they finally reached the blonde Kunoichi, the Mizukage's introduction confirmed his suspicions. And this is Yugito ni, special jonin of Kumogakure, and one of their most accomplished shinobi. Yugito bowed slightly. It's an honor to meet you both. I've heard interesting things about Kirigakure's newest residents. All good, I hope, Naruto replied with a diplomatic smile, though his senses remained heightened in the presence of another Jinchuriki. That depends on perspective, Yugito returned, her expression carefully neutral. Konoha's loss has certainly generated discussion among the 5 great nations. The Mizukage excused herself to greet other guests, leaving Naruto and Haku with Yugito in what could have been an awkward exchange. Instead, Haku smoothly directed the conversation toward neutral topics. The architectural differences between villages, the challenges of training in Kiri's misty climate. Throughout the exchange, Naruto sensed Yugito evaluating him, just as he was evaluating her. There was a current of recognition between them, an understanding that transcended words. They were alike in ways no one else in the room could comprehend, carrying burdens and powers that set them apart. When a lull in the conversation presented itself, Yugito spoke softly, ensuring only Naruto and Haku could hear. Perhaps we could continue this discussion somewhere less crowded? I find these diplomatic functions rather stifling after a while. Haku glanced at Naruto, silently deferring to his judgment. After a moment's consideration, Naruto nodded. There's a balcony on the eastern side that offers some privacy. Shall we? The three moved discreetly through the gathering, eventually stepping out onto a stone balcony partially sheltered from the mist by overhanging architecture. Below them, Kirigakure's lights glowed softly through the evening fog, creating an ethereal landscape. Once they were alone, Yugito's demeanor shifted subtly, still professional, but less guarded. So you're the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki who left Konoha. You've caused quite a stir in the shinobi world. It wasn't my intention to disrupt international relations, Naruto replied. I simply made a choice about my own future, a choice that happened to involve the most powerful tailed beast, Yugito observed. Surely you understood the political implications. I understood that I'd be hunted either way, Naruto countered. At least here, my abilities are acknowledged rather than suppressed. I assume you can relate to that, as Matatabi's Jinchuriki. Yugito's eyes widened slightly at his direct reference to the Two Tails by name. You're well informed. And unusually connected to your Biju, from what I sense. Kurama and I have an understanding, Naruto confirmed. We're partners, not prisoner and jailer. Fascinating, Yugito murmured. In Kumo, we train our Jinchuriki to work harmoniously with their Biju, but it typically takes years to establish such a relationship. You're young to have achieved this level of synchronization. Haku, who had been observing the exchange silently, asked, Is that why you were sent as part of this delegation? To assess Naruto-kun's status as a Jinchuriki? Yugito smiled, appreciating his perceptiveness. Partially. There were other reasons as well. I have diplomatic training, and my presence sends certain messages about Kumo's stance on Jinchuriki integration. And what is that stance? Naruto inquired. That we are valuable shinobi with unique abilities, not weapons to be locked away or used only in emergencies, Yugito replied. The Reikage believes in developing our full potential as individuals, not just as Biju containers. The conversation continued, shifting from political considerations to more personal experiences. Yugito shared aspects of her training in Kumo, how she had gradually formed a bond with Matatabi, the techniques she had developed that combined her natural affinities with the Two Tails' power. Naruto, in turn, described his journey from Konoha to Kiri, careful about which details he revealed but more open than he would have been with most strangers. Haku contributed occasional insights, particularly regarding Kiri's changing attitudes toward shinobi with unique abilities, a subtle reference to the historical persecution of Kekkei Genkai users that had affected his own life. As the evening progressed, Naruto found himself increasingly drawn to Yujito's confidence and perspective. She carried her power with a grace that came from acceptance rather than suppression, integrating her status as a Jinchuriki into her identity rather than hiding it. She's achieved what you're working toward, Kurama observed. Balance between human and Biju. Within Naruto, something shifted, a recognition not just of a fellow Jinchuriki, but of someone whose path might offer insights for his own journey. The diplomatic function had unexpectedly presented him with a connection he hadn't realized he was missing. When they eventually returned to the main gathering, the dynamic between them had changed subtly. A foundation had been laid, not quite friendship yet, but mutual respect and a shared understanding that set them apart from the political maneuvering around them. Later that night, as Naruto sat on the engawa of their compound, processing the evening's events, Haku joined him with a pot of tea and 2 cups. You connected with her, Haku observed, pouring the steaming liquid. The Kumo Jinchuriki. We have things in common, Naruto acknowledged, accepting the cup. Experiences that are hard to explain to others. Haku nodded, his expression thoughtful. She carries herself with confidence. Her village clearly values her. That's what struck me too, Naruto admitted. In Kumo, being a Jinchuriki isn't something to hide or be ashamed of. It's a responsibility, a role with purpose. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, sipping tea and listening to the distant sound of waves against Kiri's shore. She'll be here for 2 weeks, according to the diplomatic schedule, Haku finally said, his voice carefully neutral. Perhaps you could learn from each other. Naruto glanced at his companion, detecting something beneath the casual suggestion, concern, perhaps, or another emotion he couldn't quite identify. Would that bother you? Why would it? Haku replied, though his eyes didn't meet Naruto's. Your growth as a Jinchuriki is important, and forming connections with shinobi from other villages strengthens Kiri's position. That's not what I asked, Haku, Naruto said gently, a faint flush colored Haku's pale cheeks. I've grown accustomed to our training sessions, to helping you develop your abilities. I wouldn't want that to change. Understanding dawned on Naruto. During their months together, Haku had become more than a teacher or companion. Their bond had deepened into something neither had fully acknowledged. And now, Yujito's arrival had introduced a new element that disrupted that unspoken connection. Nothing will change between us, Naruto assured him, placing his hand over Haku's. You've been here for me from the beginning. That matters. Haku's fingers tensed briefly under Naruto's touch, then relaxed. I'm being foolish, he murmured. Your path is your own to choose, and I choose to walk it with those who have stood by me, Naruto replied firmly. You and Zabuza gave me a chance when no one else would. I don't forget that. The tension between them eased, though something lingered, a dawning awareness of feelings that had grown beyond simple friendship or alliance. Neither was ready to name it, but its presence was undeniable, like the mist that surrounded Kirigakure, subtle but pervasive. Inside Naruto's mindscape, Kurama observed these developments with unexpected interest. Human attachments had always seemed trivial to the ancient fox, but watching his Jinchuriki navigate these complex emotions offered new insights. Perhaps there was more to these bonds than he had previously acknowledged. Your path grows more interesting, kid, he commented as Naruto prepared for sleep that night. A new Jinchuriki ally, deepening bonds with the ice user, a village that values your potential, and all the while, Konoha's shadow lengthens behind you. You think they're still searching for me? Naruto asked, though he already knew the answer. Without doubt, Kurama confirmed. The question is not if they will come, but when, and what you will have built here before they do. Naruto considered this as sleep began to claim him. In 6 months, he had established a life in Kiri that already felt more authentic than his years in Konoha. He had allies who valued him, abilities that were recognized rather than suppressed, and now, potentially, a connection with another Jinchuriki who understood the unique burden he carried. Whatever challenges lay ahead, from Konoha, from within Kiri, or from his own developing powers, he faced them from a position of growing strength and genuine belonging. Let them come, he thought as consciousness faded. I'm not the same person who left the village. And I never will be again. In the depths of his mind, Kurama rumbled in agreement, his massive tails swaying with anticipation for the paths yet to unfold. The morning after the diplomatic reception, Yugito stood at the window of her guest quarters in Kirigakure's diplomatic wing, watching the mist swirl through the village's angular architecture. Her thoughts, however, were far from the view before her. They lingered on the young shinobi she had met the previous evening, Naruto Uzumaki, the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki who had defied convention by leaving his village and choosing his own path. As she observed the hidden village coming to life in the early hours, Yujito's mind drifted to her own past, to the experiences that had shaped her into the kunoichi she was today. Kirigakure, 8 years earlier, 6-year-old Yugito huddled in the corner of the specialized training room, her small body trembling as blue chakra flickered around her like flames. Tears streaked down her face, but she refused to cry out despite the pain of the chakra burning her skin. "Control it," commanded the stern voice of her trainer, a veteran Kumo shinobi named Moto. "Feel the boundary between your chakra and the two tails. Establish your dominance." "It hurts," Yugito whispered, clenching her tiny fists. "Of course it hurts," Moto replied, his voice firm but not unkind. "Matatabi is testing your will. Show her you're stronger." The blue flames intensified, and for a moment, Yugito's eyes shifted from dark brown to slitted yellow, a sign that the Biju was gaining influence. Then, with a determined gasp, the young girl forced the chakra to recede, pulling it back into a controlled shroud around her body. "Better," Moto nodded approvingly. "You're making progress faster than expected." Later that evening, in her Spartan quarters, Yugito sat cross-legged on her bed, focusing inward as she'd been taught. Within her mindscape, she found herself in a vast chamber illuminated by blue flames. In the center, separated by a seal barrier, loomed the massive form of the two tails, Matatabi, a feline creature of blue fire with heterochromatic eyes and two swishing tails. "You fought well today, kitten," the Biju's feminine voice echoed in the chamber, a mixture of respect and amusement. "Why do you keep fighting me?" the young Yugito asked, bold despite her fear. "The trainers say we should work together." Matatabi's massive head tilted. "I test your strength because a weak vessel would mean weakness for us both. In Kirigakure, only the strong survive." "I'll become strong," Yugito promised, her childish face set with determination. "Strong enough that no one will ever hurt either of us." The Biju studied her for a long moment. "Perhaps you will at that, little one. Perhaps you will." Kirigakure, 4 years earlier, at 10 years old, Yugito moved through the advanced training course with grace that belied her youth. Blue chakra cloaked her body as she leapt between obstacles, her reflexes enhanced by Matatabi's power. Observing from the platform above were the Reikage and his advisors, evaluating her progress. "Her control is remarkable for her age," one advisor commented. "Better than our previous two-tails Jinchuriki achieved in decades." The Reikage, A, nodded, his muscular arms crossed over his chest. B was right about the training approach. Cooperation rather than domination is yielding better results. After completing the course, Yugito was summoned to the observation platform. Despite her physical exhaustion, she stood at attention, disciplined and respectful before her village's leader. "Your progress is satisfactory," the Reikage stated, his deep voice matter-of-fact. "From today, you will begin missions with a specialized Jonin team. You will learn to apply your abilities in the field." "Thank you, Lord Reikage," Yugito replied formally, though inside, a mixture of pride and anxiety warred within her. Field missions meant leaving the controlled environment of Kumo's training facilities, facing real dangers and real enemies. That night, her conversation with Matatabi was more serious than usual. "Field missions will test us both," the Biju observed. "Are you prepared, kitten?" "I've been training for this my entire life," Yugito replied, her mental projection showing her seated cross-legged before the great cat's cage. "But I'm still concerned. What if I lose control? What if I fail?" Matatabi's flaming tails swished thoughtfully. "Then we learn and grow stronger. But I don't think you will fail." Her voice softened. "You've earned my respect, Yugito-ni. Few humans ever do." "We're partners now, aren't we?" Yugito asked, a small smile forming. "Yes," the two tails agreed. "Partners." Kirigakure, present time. The memories faded as Yugito refocused on the mist-shrouded view before her. Her life had been shaped by her status as a Jinchuriki. But unlike many others who bore that burden, she had been valued, trained, integrated into her village. She had become one of Kumo's elite Jonin, respected for her abilities rather than feared or ostracized for what she contained. Meeting Naruto Uzumaki had stirred something within her, recognition, certainly, but also curiosity. His circumstances were so different from hers, yet there was a fundamental connection that transcended their different paths. Both carried the immense responsibility and power of a tailed beast. Both knew what it meant to be seen as a weapon first and a person second. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. It was one of the Kiri aides assigned to the diplomatic mission. "Yugito-san, the Mizukage requests your presence at a specialized training session this morning." Naruto Uzumaki will be demonstrating some of his techniques for selected observers. Yugito raised an eyebrow, understanding the political theater at play. This was no casual invitation. It was a calculated move by the Mizukage to showcase Kiri's newest asset, while observing Kumo's Jinchuriki in a controlled setting. Please inform Lady Mizukage that I would be honored to attend, she replied diplomatically. When and where will this demonstration take place? The training ground was one of Kiri's most specialized facilities. A massive tiered arena built into the side of a cliff overlooking the sea, designed with reinforced barriers to contain high-level jutsu. By the time Yugito arrived, accompanied by 2 Kumo advisors and their Kiri escorts, several notable figures were already present. The Mizukage occupied a central observation platform alongside her advisors. Zabuza Momochi stood nearby, his imposing presence drawing cautious glances from the Kiri shinobi around him. On the training floor itself, Haku and Naruto were engaged in light warm-up exercises. Yugito was directed to a position of honor near the Mizukage, close enough for conversation but separated enough to maintain diplomatic formality. As she took her place, Meitarumi turned to her with a calculated smile. Yugito-san, thank you for joining us. I thought you might appreciate seeing how Kirigakure approaches the training of special shinobi like Naruto-kun. The emphasis on special shinobi rather than Jinchuriki was not lost on Yugito. The Mizukage was framing this as a professional courtesy between villages rather than a political showcase. I'm curious to observe his progress, Yugito replied neutrally. The Reikage values the exchange of training methodologies between allied villages. Mei nodded, pleased with the diplomatic response. Indeed. While our villages have had differences in the past, I believe there is much we can learn from each other, particularly regarding the development of unique talents. Their conversation was interrupted as Zabuza stepped forward to address the assembled observers. Today's demonstration will focus on advanced elemental manipulation and combat application, he announced, his gruff voice carrying across the arena. Haku will provide opposition to illustrate practical applications. Naruto and Haku moved to opposite sides of the training area, bowing formally to each other before assuming ready stances. Yugito studied Naruto intently, noting how different he seemed from the diplomatic reception, focused, centered, radiating a calm confidence that contrasted with his youth. The demonstration began with basic elemental techniques, Naruto cycling through water, wind, and earth jutsu with impressive fluidity. His water manipulation showed clear Kiri influence, while his wind techniques had a distinctive style that hinted at self-taught innovation. Each jutsu was executed with precision that belied his young age. His chakra control is exceptional, Yugito commented, genuinely impressed. Especially for someone containing the 9 tails. Indeed, the Mizukage agreed. And this is after only 6 months of formal training in Kiri. One wonders why Konoha failed to develop such potential. The implied criticism of Konoha was obvious, but Yugito chose not to engage with the political bait. Instead, she focused on the escalating demonstration as Haku began launching Ice Senban as offensive pressure, forcing Naruto to combine defensive and offensive techniques simultaneously. What followed was an impressive display of coordination between the two. Haku's ice release techniques created increasingly complex challenges. Mirrors that launched attacks from multiple angles, ice structures that impeded movement, Senban barrages that required split-second responses. Naruto countered with creative combinations of basic elements and shadow clones, showing tactical thinking that went beyond raw power. He's holding back, Matatabi observed within Yugito's mind. This is a choreographed display, not his full capacity. Of course, Yugito replied mentally. As are we when we demonstrate for foreign observers. The question is how much he's concealing. The demonstration reached its climax when Naruto formed a sequence of hand signs that even Yugito didn't immediately recognize. The ground beneath his feet trembled, and wooden branches burst forth, forming a protective dome that intercepted Haku's ice needles before extending outward in multiple directions. A subtle tension rippled through the observation area. Wood Release, Mokuton, was a legendary ability thought exclusive to Hashirama Senju, the first Hokage. Its appearance in a Jinchuriki from another village was politically significant. A recent development, the Mizukage explained smoothly, though Yugito detected a hint of pride in her voice. We believe the unique interaction between his Uzumaki lineage, the Nine Tails chakra, and his natural affinities has awakened this dormant potential. There's more to this than she's saying, Matatabi cautioned. Wood Release is the only known technique that can subdue tailed beasts without a seal. Combined with his status as a Jinchuriki, he could theoretically control other Biju, Yugito concluded, understanding the implications immediately. The Reikage will need to know about this. The demonstration concluded with a synchronized display as Naruto and Haku combined their techniques to create a stunning visual effect, wood and ice intertwining to form an artistic structure in the center of the arena. The gathered observers applauded politely, though Yugito noted the calculating expressions on many faces. What they had witnessed went beyond impressive. It was potentially world-changing. As the formal portion ended and attendees began to mingle, Yugito made her way toward Naruto and Haku. The latter regarded her with a polite but reserved expression, while Naruto's face brightened with what seemed like genuine pleasure at her approach. That was quite a performance, she said, keeping her tone casual despite the significance of what she'd witnessed. Your control is impressive. Thank you, Naruto replied, wiping sweat from his brow. Though Haku made me look better than I am. His precision creates perfect scenarios for counter techniques. Haku inclined his head modestly. Naruto-kun is too generous. His adaptability is remarkable. I never know which element he'll employ next. Yugito sensed the genuine respect between them, noting how comfortably they operated as a team. There was something else too, a subtle protective quality in how Haku positioned himself slightly closer to Naruto when others approached. The Mizukage mentioned you've achieved this level in just 6 months of formal training, Yugito observed. That suggests either extraordinary talent or prior knowledge you didn't showcase in Konoha. Naruto's expression flickered briefly, a calculating look replacing his open demeanor for just a moment. Let's just say Konoha and I had different ideas about appropriate training for someone in my position. The diplomatic answer conveyed volumes without revealing specifics. Yugito nodded, understanding the delicate balance he was maintaining between honesty and discretion. Perhaps we could continue this conversation in a less public setting, she suggested. I'd be interested in comparing notes on Jinchuriki training approaches. The Reikage has been refining Kumo's methods for decades. I'd like that, Naruto agreed, his interest appearing genuine. Though I should probably clean up first. He gestured to his training attire, now damp with sweat and bearing traces of earth and wood from his jutsu. Of course. Perhaps this afternoon? I've been granted access to the Eastern training grounds for my own practice. We'll be there, Naruto confirmed, including Haku in the arrangement with a glance at his companion. As Yugito departed, she reflected on what she had observed, not just the technical skills, but the underlying dynamics. Naruto Uzumaki was not what she had expected based on Kumo's intelligence reports about Konoha's Jinchuriki. He was methodical, strategic, and far more controlled than his age would suggest, and his relationship with his companions spoke of genuine bonds rather than mere alliance of convenience. Most intriguingly, she had sensed the Ninetales chakra responding to her presence, or more accurately, to Matatabi's presence within her. There was communication happening on a level beyond human perception, Biju to Biju, ancient beings recognizing each other across their human vessels. He intrigues you, Matatabi observed as Yugito returned to the diplomatic quarters. As a fellow Jinchuriki, certainly, Yugito replied, maintaining professional detachment even in her private thoughts. Matatabi's amused purr echoed in her mind. There's more than professional interest, kitten. I sense your curiosity about him as a person, not just as the Ninetales vessel. Yugito didn't deny it. At 20 years old, she had focused her life entirely on her duties as a kunoichi and Jinchuriki, leaving little room for personal connections. Naruto represented something both familiar and foreign, someone who understood her unique position but approached it from an entirely different perspective. As she prepared for their afternoon meeting, Yugito reminded herself of her mission parameters. She was in Kiri to assess the village's current status, evaluate their relationship with their new Jinchuriki, and report back to the Reikage. Personal interest had no place in diplomatic assignments. Yet, as she changed into more practical attire for the training session, she couldn't deny a sense of anticipation that went beyond professional duty. The Eastern training grounds were more secluded than the demonstration arena, consisting of several clearings surrounding a large pond, all nestled against one of Kiri's many coastal cliffs. When Yugito arrived, she found Naruto already there, creating shadow clones that spread out across the area in what appeared to be a security measure. Haku stood nearby, maintaining a small ice dome that seemed to be preserving medicinal herbs he had collected. Hope you don't mind, Naruto greeted her, gesturing to the clones. Old habits. I like to ensure privacy when discussing certain topics. A sensible precaution, Yugito agreed, appreciating his foresight. In the world of shinobi, private conversations were a rare luxury, particularly for those of their status. Your clone technique is quite advanced. They appear solid rather than mere illusions. Shadow clone jutsu, Naruto confirmed. Each is a complete copy capable of independent action. When they dispel, their experiences return to me. An efficient training method, Yugito observed. We have something similar in Kumo, though not as chakra-intensive. They moved to a flat area near the pond where Haku had prepared a simple tea service on a stone bench. The gesture was unexpectedly hospitable for what had begun as a training comparison, and Yujito found herself relaxing slightly as they settled. I thought we might begin by establishing some common ground, Yujito suggested after accepting a cup of fragrant tea from Haku. How much control have you established over the Nine-Tails chakra? Naruto exchanged a glance with Haku before answering. That depends on how you define control. If you mean suppression and forced extraction of power, very little. If you mean cooperative access and harmonized energy flow, quite a bit. The distinction was significant, revealing a philosophical approach very different from traditional Jinchuriki training. Most villages, including Kumo to some extent, emphasize dominance over the Biju, establishing the human host as the unquestioned controller of the sealed entity. You speak as though the Nine-Tails is a partner rather than a sealed weapon, Yujito noted, careful to keep any judgment from her tone. Kurama, Naruto corrected gently. He has a name, just as Matatabi does. And yes, we're working toward partnership. It's more effective than constant internal conflict. The casual use of both Biju names startled Yujito, though she controlled her reaction. Few humans knew the true names of the tailed beasts. Such knowledge was typically guarded closely by Jinchuriki and village leaders. You know Matatabi's name, she stated rather than asked. Naruto nodded. Kurama has shared some information about his siblings. They were all created from the same original entity. After all, this was venturing into territory beyond even Yujito's knowledge. In Kumo, the history of the Biju was documented primarily in terms of their capture and sealing, not their origins. Perhaps a practical demonstration would be more illuminating than theory, Haku suggested, sensing the conversation venturing into sensitive areas. Comparing your approaches to chakra manifestation, for instance. Yujito appreciated the diplomatic pivot. An excellent suggestion. I'd be interested to see how different sealing methods affect chakra expression. They moved to the open area near the pond, giving themselves ample space. Haku withdrew to a respectful distance, though Yujito noted that he maintained a position that would allow quick intervention if necessary. A protective stance that spoke volumes about his relationship with Naruto. Ladies first? Naruto offered with a slight bow. Yujito nodded and closed her eyes, centering herself. When she opened them again, her dark irises had shifted to slitted yellow, and blue chakra began to emanate from her body. The energy took shape around her, forming a translucent shroud that resembled dancing flames. Matatabi's distinctive fire-like chakra. First stage manifestation, she explained, her voice carrying a slight echo as it harmonized with the Biju's energy. In Kumo, we classify Jinchuriki transformations by percentage of Biju chakra integrated with the host's natural energy. Naruto observed with undisguised fascination. The chakra patterns are beautiful, he commented. Like living flame that doesn't burn its wielder. It can burn if control slips, Yujito corrected. The higher the percentage, the greater the physical toll. To demonstrate, she increased the chakra flow, causing the blue flames to intensify and form the beginning of a tail-like appendage behind her. This approaches 15% integration. Beyond this point requires specialized training to prevent cellular damage. She released the manifestation, allowing the blue chakra to recede until only her changed eyes indicated Matatabi's influence. Your turn. Naruto nodded and closed his eyes. When he opened them, they had transformed to slitted red, the characteristic mark of the Nine-Tails influence. But what followed surprised Yujito. Instead of the typical explosive manifestation of chakra she had expected from the most powerful Biju, Naruto's transformation was controlled, almost elegant. Red-orange chakra emerged from his body in a smooth flow, forming a glowing shroud that pulsed with steady rhythm. Our approach is different, he explained. Rather than measuring percentage of power, Kurama and I focus on harmony of intention. The chakra flows where we agree it should, strengthens what we both wish to protect. As if to demonstrate, the chakra shroud extended in complex patterns, forming temporary constructs, extra limbs, protective barriers, even rudimentary shapes that suggested the Nine-Tails features without fully manifesting them. Remarkable control, Yujito acknowledged. Especially for the Nine-Tails, known to be the most willful of the Biju. Kurama is strong-willed, Naruto agreed with a hint of amusement, but so am I. We've found respect works better than dominance. He's not wrong, Matatabi commented in Yujito's mind. My brother was always the most prideful, but also the most loyal once respect was earned. This boy has done what few humans ever could. He's earned Kurama's cooperation. As they continued exchanging techniques, Yujito found herself increasingly impressed by Naruto's innovative approach to Jinchuriki abilities. Unlike the structured, generations-refined methods of Kumogakure, his techniques had an improvisational quality that spoke of self-teaching and adaptation. He had clearly constructed his own training regimen, incorporating elements from various sources into something uniquely effective. Throughout their session, Haku observed quietly, occasionally offering insights or suggestions that revealed his deep familiarity with Naruto's abilities. There was an unmistakable synchronicity between them, a harmony of movement and understanding that went beyond mere training partners. After demonstrating various chakra applications, they took a break, returning to the stone bench where fresh tea awaited, courtesy of one of Naruto's shadow clones. You mentioned earlier that Konoha had different ideas about appropriate training, Yugito said as they settled. I'm curious about what methods they employed, compared to Kumo's approach. A shadow crossed Naruto's expression. Konoha's primary method was suppression and ignorance. Most villagers weren't told who contained the Nine Tails, but they knew something was sealed in me. I wasn't told about Kurama until I was 12, and even then, it was by accident. Yugito's surprise must have shown on her face, because Naruto continued with a bitter smile. Hard to believe, isn't it? A Jinchuriki who didn't know what he was, why he was hated, or how to control the power inside him. Konoha's strategy was to keep me weak, keep me ignorant, and hope the seal would do all the work. That seems dangerously short-sighted, Yugito commented, genuinely perplexed. In Kumo, Jinchuriki training begins as soon as the child can understand basic concepts. The earlier the host and Biju learn to coexist, the more stable the seal remains. Precisely, Naruto agreed. But Konoha's leaders feared the Nine Tails more than they valued its potential. They saw only the destruction from 12 years ago, not the possibility of harmony. Haku, who had been silent during this exchange, gently added, when Naruto-kun first demonstrated his his special abilities to me, I was amazed at how much he had accomplished through self-teaching. Most of his techniques were developed in secret, without guidance. The implications were significant. If Naruto had achieved this level of control primarily through self-instruction, his natural affinity for Jinchuriki arts must be extraordinary. Combined with his other unusual abilities like the newly manifested wood release, he represented a rare convergence of talents. In Kumo, Yugito shared, Jinchuriki are considered valuable assets, but also individuals with unique needs. We train intensively, but we're also integrated into the village structure. I lead missions, train younger shinobi, participate in diplomatic functions. My status is known but not defining. Sounds like what I always wanted, Naruto admitted quietly. To be seen as a person first, a Jinchuriki second. And here in Kiri? Yugito asked, genuinely curious. How are you regarded? Naruto exchanged another glance with Haku before answering. It's complex. The Mizukage values my potential, certainly, but there's still wariness. Kiri is changing from its bloody misdays, but old fears linger. Powerful abilities still provoke caution. Naruto-kun is being modest, Haku interjected. He has earned significant respect in just 6 months. The Mizukage has granted him special training resources normally reserved for elite jonin, and his insights are increasingly sought on matters of village security. And yet, I remain a political asset as much as a shinobi, Naruto added with pragmatic honesty. My presence here is a statement to other villages, especially Konoha. I understand that. Yugito appreciated his clear-eyed assessment of his position. Many Jinchuriki, particularly younger ones, failed to recognize the political dimensions of their status, focusing only on the personal burden or power. All Jinchuriki are political to some degree, she acknowledged. We represent our village's power, their military capability. But that doesn't mean we can't also forge our own identities, our own paths within those constraints. Their conversation continued into the afternoon, moving from practical techniques to philosophical discussions about the nature of their unique position in the shinobi world. Throughout, Yugito found herself increasingly drawn to Naruto's perspective, his determination to form a genuine partnership with his Biju rather than a master weapon relationship, his balanced view of village politics without bitterness, his evident care for his companions. As the sun began to lower toward the horizon, Yugito realized they had spent hours in conversation that had gradually shifted from professional exchange to something more personal. She had shared aspects of her childhood in Kumo, her early struggles with Matatabi, her gradual acceptance in the village. Naruto, in turn, had described his isolation in Konoha, his discovery of the truth about the Nine Tails, and his journey to Kirigakure. I should return to the diplomatic quarters, she said eventually, aware that her absence would be noted. But I've found our exchange extremely valuable. As have I, Naruto replied, sincerity evident in his voice. Perhaps we could continue tomorrow? There's a technique for Jinchuriki meditation I'd like to show you, something that might facilitate deeper communication with Matatabi. The offer was professionally relevant but carried personal undertones that Yugito couldn't ignore. There was a connection forming between them, a recognition that transcended village boundaries and political considerations. I would appreciate that, she agreed. My schedule is clear until the afternoon delegation meeting. As they prepared to part ways, Haku approached with a small package wrapped in wax paper. Medicinal herbs from our garden, he explained, offering it to Yugito. They're particularly effective for managing the cellular strain of prolonged Biju chakra use. The gesture was unexpected, personal rather than diplomatic, suggesting acceptance rather than mere tolerance. Thank you, Yugito replied, genuinely touched. This is very thoughtful. Haku's smile was polite but contained a complexity that Yugito couldn't quite decipher. Naruto-kun speaks highly of your abilities and insight. Any friend of his is welcome to our resources. As Yugito made her way back through Kirigakure's misty streets, escorted by a Kiri Chunin assigned to the diplomatic mission, she found her thoughts lingering on the afternoon's interactions. Beyond the valuable technical exchange, she had encountered something she rarely found in her travels. Genuine understanding from someone who shared her unique life experience. You like the kit, Matatabi observed, the Biju's mental voice tinged with amusement. He unsettles your carefully maintained balance. He is unexpected, Yugito acknowledged privately. Both in his abilities and his perspective. And in how he makes you feel, the two tales added perceptively. How long has it been since you connected with someone beyond mission parameters, kitten? Yugito had no ready answer for that. Her life had been defined by duty, by excellence in service to Kirigakure. Personal connections had always seemed secondary, a potential distraction from the focus required of an elite Jinchuriki. Yet something about Naruto Uzumaki had bypassed those carefully constructed professional boundaries, resonating with aspects of herself she rarely acknowledged. The desire for understanding, for connection with someone who truly comprehended the complexities of her existence. Be careful, Matatabi cautioned, though without judgment. The ice user harbors deep feelings for the boy. And your diplomatic mission has defined parameters. I'm aware of both, Yugito replied. This is professional exchange with a fellow Jinchuriki, nothing more. Matatabi's skeptical purr echoed in her mind, but the Biju offered no further comment. Over the next several days, Yugito and Naruto established a routine of morning training sessions, exchanging techniques and perspectives on Jinchuriki abilities. Haku was a constant presence, sometimes participating, sometimes observing, always attentive to Naruto's needs in a way that spoke of deep personal investment rather than mere comradeship. Zabuza joined them occasionally, his gruff expertise providing valuable combat applications for their theoretical discussions. Yugito found herself respecting the former Miss Swordsman's pragmatic approach, understanding better how this unusual group had formed such strong bonds despite their different backgrounds. On the fifth morning, Naruto suggested something new. There's a technique I've been developing, he explained as they sat near the pond after an intensive chakra control exercise. A way for Jinchuriki to enter a shared meditative state where our Biju can communicate directly. Yugito's interest was immediately piqued, both professionally and personally. In Kumo, research into Biju communication had been theoretical at best, hampered by the rarity of having multiple Jinchuriki in close proximity. Is it safe? She asked, her training prompting caution despite her curiosity. We've tested the basic principles, Naruto assured her, gesturing to Haku. Haku helped me design a seal array that stabilizes the connection. His eyes techniques create a perfect crystalline medium for chakra resonance. Haku nodded confirmation. The technique allows limited consciousness sharing without compromising the integrity of either seal. It's similar to how Naruto-kun communicates with Kurama, but extended to include another Jinchuriki. The technical explanation was sound, but Yugito detected subtle tension in Haku's demeanor, a barely perceptible reservation beneath his supportive exterior. She wondered if he felt excluded from this aspect of Naruto's life, this connection that only another Jinchuriki could fully share. What do you think? She asked Matatabi. Would you be comfortable with direct communication with the Nine Tails? Kurama and I share a complex history, the Two Tails replied thoughtfully. But I admit to curiosity about his perspective after so many years sealed within humans. And this technique could provide valuable insights. With Matatabi's agreement, Yugito consented to the experiment. They moved to a more secluded clearing where Haku had prepared a circular array of seals etched into flat stones arranged in a pattern reminiscent of the trigrams used in high-level sealing techniques. The principle is resonance between compatible chakra types, Naruto explained as they seated themselves cross-legged in the center of the array, facing each other. Biju chakra has unique harmonics that can align when properly channeled. Haku moved around the perimeter, activating each seal with precise touches of his chakra. As the array illuminated, Yugito felt a subtle shift in the air, a thickness that reminded her of the moments before lightning strikes, when potential energy gathers before release. Close your eyes and find your center, Naruto instructed softly. Locate the point where your chakra and Matatabis intersect, then follow my lead. Yugito complied, slipping easily into the meditative state that years of training had made second nature. Within her mindscape, she found herself in the familiar chamber of blue flames where Matatabi resided. But something was different. A ripple in the usual boundaries, a sense of expansion beyond the known parameters. We have a visitor, Kitten, Matatabi announced, her massive form shifting to face something beyond Yugito's perception. Or rather, we are visiting. The chamber seemed to dissolve at its edges, merging with another space. A vast, flooded corridor with pipes running along the ceiling. Water ankle-deep covered the floor, reflecting dim light from an unseen source. And there, standing at what appeared to be a junction between the two mindscapes, was Naruto. It worked, he said, a note of wonder in his voice. Welcome to the shared mindscape, Yugito. Before she could respond, a massive presence made itself known, an enormous fox with 9 swaying tails, its red-orange fur seeming to glow from within. Kurama, the 9 tails, regarded them from behind massive bars, his eyes ancient and knowing. So the 2 tails Jinchuriki visits our domain, the fox rumbled, his voice resonating through the merged mindscape. It has been many years since we last communicated directly, Matatabi. Indeed, brother, the 2 tails replied, moving forward until the 2 Biju faced each other across the metaphysical boundary of their respective seals. Much has changed since the sage's time. Yugito watched in fascination as the 2 massive beings regarded each other with a mixture of wariness and recognition. There was history here, ancient and complex, that predated human civilization. They were created together, Naruto explained quietly, moving to stand beside her. All 9 Biju, formed from the 10 tails by the Sage of 6 Paths. Their siblings, in a way. The Sage of 6 Paths, Yugito repeated, the name familiar from old legends but rarely discussed in practical Jinchuriki training. Kumo's records mention him only as a mythical figure. He was real, Naruto assured her. And his legacy affects all of us, Jinchuriki, Biju, the entire shinobi world. Kurama has shared some of that history with me. As if responding to his name, the massive fox turned his attention to the humans. The sage intended us to help humanity, not to be imprisoned within them, he stated, his voice carrying centuries of resentment. He would be disappointed in what followed his passing. Yet here we are, Matatabi observed, her flaming tails swishing thoughtfully. Bound to these humans, sharing their lives, their experiences. There is wisdom to be gained from such proximity, brother. Perhaps, Kurama conceded, his gaze shifting to Naruto. Some humans are less insufferable than others. Yugito couldn't help but smile at what appeared to be the 9 tails version of a compliment. She sensed the genuine bond between Naruto and his Biju, different from her own relationship with Matatabi but no less significant. What followed was an extraordinary exchange as the 2 Biju shared perspectives on their centuries of existence, their experiences with previous Jinchuriki, their observations of the changing shinobi world. Naruto and Yugito listened, occasionally asking questions, gaining insights that no human had been privy to for generations. The sage spoke of a time when humans and Biju would find true harmony, Matatabi revealed. Not through dominance or sealing, but through mutual understanding. Perhaps you two represent the beginning of that path. Or perhaps we're just less stubborn than our predecessors, Naruto suggested with a wry smile. Speak for yourself, Kit, Kurama rumbled, though without real heat. I remain as stubborn as ever. I've simply found it more interesting to cooperate with you than to fight you. As the shared meditation continued, Yugito found herself aware of Naruto's presence beside her in a way that transcended physical proximity. In this merged mindscape, she could sense aspects of him that would normally remain hidden, his determination that bordered on stubbornness, his capacity for compassion despite past hurts, his genuine curiosity about the world and its possibilities. Most striking was his fundamental optimism, not naivete, but a considered hope that better outcomes were possible despite the broken systems and historical conflicts that shaped the shinobi world. It was a quality Yugito had rarely encountered in her profession, where pragmatism and strategic calculation typically overshadowed idealism. When they finally ended the meditation, returning to normal consciousness in the seal array, Yugito felt changed by the experience. The shared mindscape had created a connection that conventional interaction couldn't match, a recognition on a level beyond words or gestures. Opening her eyes, she found Naruto already watching her, his expression suggesting he had experienced something similar. Between them lay a new understanding, an awareness that transcended village boundaries and political allegiances. That was extraordinary, she acknowledged, finding words inadequate to describe the experience. Thank you for trusting me enough to try it, Naruto replied softly. he would risk such vulnerability with a Jinchuriki from another village. The moment of connection was interrupted as Haku approached, deactivating the final seals in the array. Was the technique successful? He asked, his tone professionally interested, though Yugito detected a subtle undercurrent of something else. Not quite jealousy, but perhaps exclusion. Beyond expectations, Naruto confirmed, his face lighting up with enthusiasm. Kurama and Matatabi communicated directly, shared histories I've never heard before. The Sage of Six Paths, the original purpose of the Biju. It's knowledge that's been lost for centuries. Haku nodded, genuine happiness for Naruto's discovery evident despite his personal feelings. That's wonderful, Naruto-kun. Such information could prove invaluable for your development. As they gathered their equipment and prepared to leave the training ground, Yugito found herself hyper-aware of the subtle dynamics between Naruto and Haku. The gentle attentiveness, the shared glances, the unconscious synchronization of movement that spoke of deep familiarity. There was love there, perhaps not yet fully acknowledged, but unmistakable to an observant eye. Yet she also couldn't deny the connection that had formed between herself and Naruto. A resonance born of shared experience that no one else could fully comprehend. Being a Jinchuriki created a fundamental commonality that transcended other differences. That evening, as she prepared her diplomatic report for the Reikage, Yugito found herself carefully editing her personal impressions. The official document detailed Naruto's abilities, his apparent status in Kirigakure, the potential implications of his wood release, and the village's defensive capabilities. But it omitted the deeper connection, the shared meditation, the sense of recognition that had grown between them. You're protecting him, Matatabi observed. And perhaps yourself as well. I'm being professionally selective, Yugito countered, though without full conviction. The Reikage needs strategic information, not personal observations. The two are not always separable, kitten, the Two-Tails replied with feline wisdom. Your growing attachment to the boy has strategic implications, whether you acknowledge them or not. Yugito paused in her writing, considering Matatabi's perspective. The Biju wasn't wrong. Her feelings, whatever their nature, complicated her mission parameters. Kumo had sent her to assess Kiri's Jinchuriki, not to form a personal bond with him. Yet something about this situation defied the usual categories of diplomatic engagement. Naruto was not merely another village's asset. He was someone who understood her life in ways no one else could, who shared the fundamental experience of carrying a tailed beast within them. What would you have me do? She asked her Biju companion. Deny the connection? Request immediate reassignment? Neither, Matatabi replied thoughtfully. I would have you recognize the reality of your feelings while maintaining your duties. Both can exist simultaneously, kitten. The question is how you navigate their intersection. With that wisdom in mind, Yugito completed her report, professional and thorough, while acknowledging to herself that her perspective had shifted. Whatever happened next would require careful navigation of increasingly complex emotional terrain. The following days brought new developments as the Mizukage assigned the three of them, Naruto, Haku, and Yujito, to a joint mission. Officially described as border security reconnaissance, it was clearly designed as both a test of their compatibility and a demonstration of trust between villages. The northern coastal areas have reported unusual activity, May explained during the briefing. Possibly missing mean using the sea caves for smuggling operations. As this impacts both Kiri's security and potentially involves routes to the Land of Lightning, having representatives from both villages investigate seems appropriate. The diplomatic framing was elegant, but the subtext was clear. This was an opportunity to observe how Kiri's Jinchuriki and Kumo's Jinchuriki function together in the field, while also assessing Haku's role in their team dynamic. Zabuza, present as Naruto's senior, added practical details. The sea caves stretch for kilometers along the northern coast. Many connect to underground water systems that could provide access to sensitive areas of the village. Your priority is information gathering, not engagement. Unless engagement becomes necessary, the Mizukage amended smoothly. In which case, appropriate force is authorized. The mission parameters established, they departed the following morning, traveling by boat along Kiri's rugged coastline. The 3-day assignment would take them to remote areas where the natural mist of the Land of Water created perfect cover for clandestine activities. During the journey, Yugito observed the seamless coordination between Naruto and Haku, how they anticipated each other's needs, communicated with minimal words, shared responsibilities without explicit division. It was the kind of partnership that typically took years to develop, speaking to the intensity of their experiences together. Yet they welcomed her into their dynamic without reservation, adapting their approach to incorporate her skills and perspective. Naruto particularly seemed to value her input, often seeking her opinion on tactical decisions or chakra techniques relevant to their mission. By the second day, As they investigated a complex network of sea caves accessible only during low tide, Yugito found herself working in natural harmony with them. Her sensory abilities complemented Haku's ice mirrors for reconnaissance, while Naruto's shadow clones provided perfect coverage of multiple passages simultaneously. It was during one such reconnaissance that the mission parameters shifted from observation to engagement. Naruto's clone had discovered a hidden chamber deep within the cave system, where a group of rogue shinobi had established an advanced operation, not mere smuggling, but what appeared to be research into forbidden techniques. Scrolls with Kiri classification markings, Naruto reported after his clone dispersed, providing him with the intelligence. Equipment for chakra extraction and storage. At least 6 missing nin, based on their headbands, mostly Kiri, 1 from IWA. This goes beyond our briefing, Haku observed. These may be remnants of past Kiri factions, possibly associated with the Bloody Mist era. The implication was significant. Such groups often pursued forbidden techniques related to Biju extraction or replication, directly threatening to Jinchuriki like Naruto and Yugito. We should withdraw and report, Haku suggested, concern evident in his voice. The Mizukage would send ENBU for this level of threat. That would give them time to relocate, Yugito countered, assessing the tactical situation. If they're researching Biju-related techniques, every scroll they take with them represents a potential threat to Jinchuriki everywhere. Naruto considered both perspectives, his expression thoughtful. We could compromise, secure the perimeter to prevent escape, capture what intelligence we can, and send a shadow clone back to Kiri for reinforcements. The plan was sound, balancing caution with necessary action. They moved deeper into the cave system, establishing positions that would allow observation while preventing the rogue shinobi from detecting their presence. What happened next tested their newly formed team dynamic in unexpected ways. As they established a surveillance position overlooking the main chamber, one of the missing nin, evidently a sensor type, suddenly became alert, turning toward their location. We've been detected, Haku whispered, reaching for his senban. Before they could adjust their approach, the cave erupted into activity. The rogue shinobi activated defensive measures. Barriers laced with explosive tags that separated sections of the cave and blocked potential escape routes. They're trying to contain us, Yugito realized. These aren't just random missing nin. They're organized, prepared for intervention. The situation deteriorated rapidly as one of the barriers detonated prematurely, causing a partial cave collapse that separated the three of them. Naruto and Yugito found themselves cut off from Haku, with hostile shinobi closing in from multiple directions. Creating a clone for reinforcements, Naruto announced, forming the familiar hand sign. A shadow clone appeared and immediately sought a route back to the cave entrance. Yugito had already activated her first stage Biju cloak, blue flame-like chakra surrounding her body as she assessed their options. 2 approaching from the east passage, 1 circling behind us through a water channel. I'll take the water route, Naruto decided, his hands already forming seals for a water technique. Can you handle the 2 from the east? With pleasure, Yugito confirmed, her transformed eyes gleaming in the dim cave light. What followed was a coordinated battle that demonstrated their complementary abilities. Yugito moved with feline grace enhanced by Matatabi's chakra, her techniques precise and devastating against the missing nin who had clearly not expected to encounter a fully trained Jinchuriki. Her fire release techniques, amplified by the Two Tails influence, created blue flames that pursued targets with almost sentient determination. Meanwhile, Naruto combined water and earth techniques to trap the shinobi attempting to flank them, demonstrating versatility that few ninjas his age could match. His shadow clones provided both offensive pressure and defensive coverage, making it seem as if they faced multiple opponents rather than a single genin. The most pressing concern, however, was Haku's situation. Separated by the cave collapse, they could hear sounds of combat from his direction but had no visual confirmation of his status. We need to break through to him, Naruto insisted, his voice tight with worry as they dispatched their immediate opponents. The structural integrity is compromised, Yugito cautioned, assessing the partially collapsed tunnel. More earth techniques could bring down the entire system. Before they could decide on an approach, a new threat emerged. The leader of the missing nin, a tall figure wearing a modified Kiri Hunter nin mask, appeared at the chamber entrance, forming hand signs for a jutsu that made Yugito's blood run cold. Sealing technique, Phantom Dragon 9 consuming seals, the masked shinobi intoned. Spectral chains erupted from the cave floor, seeking the Jinchuriki with unerring precision. The technique was an advanced form of Biju suppression, not powerful enough for extraction, but designed to temporarily neutralize a Jinchuriki's access to their tailed beast. Separate! Yugito called, leaping toward the chamber ceiling as Naruto dodged in the opposite direction. The chain split, pursuing each of them with independent targeting. Yugito evaded with the enhanced reflexes her Biju cloak provided, but found the spectral constructs adjusting to her movements with disturbing intelligence. These are designed specifically for Jinchuriki, she realized aloud. They track Biju chakra signatures. Then let's give them something else to track, Naruto replied. His hands formed a sequence of signs Yugito didn't recognize, and suddenly wooden branches erupted from the cave walls, intercepting the chains pursuing him. Wood release. The Biju controlling Kekkei Genkai created a counter-resonance that disrupted the sealing technique's targeting. The chains pursuing Naruto became entangled in the wooden branches, their spectral energy dissipating as the competing chakra signatures interfered with each other. Yugito, however, had no such defense. One of the chains managed to graze her leg, and immediately she felt Matatabi's chakra fluctuate, the blue flame shroud flickering as the sealing technique began to take effect. Yugito! Naruto shouted, seeing her predicament. He directed his wood constructs toward her position, but the distance was too great for immediate intervention. The masked shinobi pressed his advantage, forming additional seals that strengthened the binding effect. Yugito felt her connection to Matatabi weakening, the two-tails chakra being forcibly suppressed by the specialized technique. Resist, kitten, Matatabi urged within her mind, the Biju's voice growing fainter. This technique targets the seal's weakest points. Counter with focused chakra bursts. Yugito followed her partner's guidance, directing sharp pulses of her own chakra to reinforce the weakening seal points. It slowed the suppression but couldn't stop it entirely. This technique had been developed specifically to counter such defensive measures. Just as the sealing chains were about to completely envelop her, an unexpected intervention changed the battle's dynamic. A barrage of ice saban shattered through a section of the partially collapsed wall, striking the masked shinobi with precision that disrupted his concentration. Haku emerged through the opening, his normally gentle expression replaced by cold determination. Release her, he commanded, already forming new hand signs. The momentary distraction was enough for Naruto to extend his wood constructs to Yugito's position, the branches wrapping around the spectral chains and disrupting their chakra structure. With Matatabi's connection partially restored, Yugito gathered her strength for a counter-attack. What followed was a demonstration of their three-person team's potential. Haku created a dome of ice mirrors that surrounded the masked shinobi, limiting his movement options. Naruto used shadow clones to launch combination attacks from multiple angles, while Yugito, recovering her Biju cloak, provided devastating finishing strikes. The masked shinobi fought with the skill of a former Kiri and Biju, but against three coordinated opponents. Two Jinchuriki and an ice release user working in perfect harmony. Even elite training proved insufficient. A final combination attack neutralized him. Haku's ice immobilizing his legs, Naruto's wood binding his arms, and Yugito's precision strike rendering him unconscious. With their primary opponent subdued, they secured the remaining research materials and prepared to transport their captive back to Kirigakure. The mission had evolved far beyond its original parameters, revealing both external threats and the remarkable potential of their combined abilities. As they bound the unconscious missing Nin, Yugito noticed Haku examining her with concerned eyes. "Are you injured?" he asked, his voice carrying genuine worry despite the complex emotions that had developed between them. "The sealing technique disrupted my chakra network," Yugito explained, touched by his concern despite their unspoken rivalry. "It will stabilize soon. Let me help," Haku offered, producing medicinal salve from his pack. "This can ease the strain on your pathways while they recover." The gesture touched Yugito deeply. This was not merely professional courtesy but personal care, offered despite the complicated feelings that existed between them regarding Naruto. It spoke to Haku's fundamental character, his capacity to set aside jealousy in favor of compassion. "Thank you," she said simply, accepting the treatment. As Haku applied the salve to her temples and wrists, key points for chakra restoration, Naruto secured the perimeter and organized the captured intelligence materials. The shadow clone he had dispatched earlier would soon bring reinforcements from Kiri. But for now, they had a moment of relative calm after the intense combat. "You fought well," Haku commented as he worked, his touch gentle despite the lingering tension between them. "Your control of the two-tails chakra is remarkable. As is your precision with ice release," Yugito returned the compliment sincerely. Few shinobi could have made that shot without risking a complete cave collapse. A small, genuine smile touched Haku's lips. "Years of practice. Zabuza-sama demanded perfection, even when I was a child." The casual reference to his childhood opened a window into his past that Yugito hadn't previously glimpsed. "You've been with him since you were young?" Haku nodded, his expression softening with memory. "He found me on the streets after my clan was purged for having Kekkei Genkai. I was 7, starving, alone. He gave me purpose when the world had taken everything else. The revelation added new dimensions to Yujito's understanding of Haku's attachment to Naruto. Both had experienced profound isolation. Haku through the loss of his clan and the persecution of his bloodline limit, Naruto through his status as an unacknowledged Jinchuriki. They had found in each other a recognition that came from shared suffering, a bond forged through mutual understanding of what it meant to be feared for one's inherent nature. And now? Yujito asked carefully. What purpose guides you now? Haku's hands paused in their work, his eyes meeting hers with unexpected directness. Protecting those precious to me, he answered simply. Zabuza-sama gave me life, but Naruto-kun. He hesitated, searching for words. Naruto-kun showed me that life could have warmth, not just purpose. The honesty of the statement created a moment of genuine connection between them, a recognition of the complex emotions they both harbored for the young Jinchuriki who had drawn them together through circumstance and shared experience. He has that effect, Yujito acknowledged softly. Bringing light to places that have known only shadow. Haku studied her face for a moment, seeming to reach a decision. You care for him, he stated rather than asked. Beyond professional interest, or Jinchuriki kinship. Yujito considered denial, but the intimacy of the moment deserved honesty. I find myself drawn to him in ways I didn't anticipate, she admitted. His perspective, his determination, his capacity for understanding despite everything he's endured. Then we share similar hearts, Haku said with quiet dignity. And face similar questions about what that means for our futures. Before they could continue this profound conversation, Naruto returned from securing the perimeter. The unspoken tension hung in the air as he looked between them, sensing that something significant had transpired in his absence. Reinforcements are about 20 minutes out, he reported, his eyes moving from Haku's hands still on Yujito's wrists to their unusually intense expressions. Is everything okay? Yes, Haku replied, completing his treatment and withdrawing his hands. I was just helping Yujito-san recover from the sealing technique's effects. Thank you for that, Naruto said sincerely, his gaze lingering on Yujito with evident concern. That technique was specifically designed for Jinchuriki suppression. We should have the Kiri Medical Corps examine you when we return. The care in his voice, directed at her while standing beside Haku, crystallized the complex dynamic between the three of them. There was something forming here, a triangle of emotions, connections, and potentials that defied conventional boundaries. Complicated terrain indeed, Kitten Matatabi observed within Yujito's mind, the Biju's voice stronger now as the sealing technique's effects faded. Two hearts drawn to the same light, and that light responding to both. As Kiri reinforcements arrived and they prepared to transport their captives and evidence back to the village, Yujito found herself contemplating the path ahead. Her diplomatic mission would end soon, requiring her return to Kumogakure. Yet something had begun here that transcended village boundaries and professional duties, a connection that demanded acknowledgement, whatever form it might ultimately take. The journey back to Kirigakure was conducted mostly in silence, each of them processing the implications of what had transpired, both in combat and in the quiet moments that followed. The Mizukage would be pleased with their mission results, valuable intelligence captured, a threat neutralized, inter-village cooperation demonstrated successfully. But the more significant outcomes remained unspoken between them, feelings acknowledged, boundaries questioned, possibilities glimpsed that none had anticipated when this assignment began. As the mist-shrouded towers of Kirigakure appeared on the horizon, Yujito made a decision. Her diplomatic mission might be ending, but her personal journey had taken an unexpected turn. Whatever happened next would require courage of a different sort than battlefield bravery. The courage to acknowledge emotions that complicated her carefully ordered life and to face the consequences of following where they led. Beside her on the boat, Naruto and Haku sat close, their shoulders occasionally touching in the familiar comfort of long association. Yet both periodically glanced her way, their expressions carrying questions for which none of them yet had answers. The three of them had faced external enemies and emerged victorious. The challenge ahead, navigating the complex feelings developing between them, would prove far more intricate than any combat they had shared. Yet as Kirigakure grew closer, Yujito found herself embracing that uncertainty with unexpected optimism. Some paths were worth exploring, even when the destination remained unclear.